can get compromised at times. So just wanted to know what are some of the trivial points that can be ensured to avoid this safety compromise.
I think that's a great question. And I feel that especially if you are in the fintech world, right, there is a huge degree of trust that needs to exist, right? Because somebody is parking their hard-earned money with you, right? You are becoming the custodian of somebody's funds, right? It is passing through your system. That data is going through your system. It's getting stored somewhere, right? It's my financial information as an individual, right? It is as important to me as maybe my family members, right? Talk to an average Indian, who'll say, yeah, I mean, I can live without my spouse, but I can't live without my money, right? It's important. Is that important? What a lot of companies, just to kill, some additional steps in a process do is they, it's like they go over the line, right? It's a very fine balance, right? That one thing that you cannot touch, and this is the way we have built the company always, because we are handling millions of transactions, right? Is that our infrastructure, our protocols, our data security, our information security, all of these things go through the highest benchmark of security. We hire the best in class folks to come and help us with it. I'm saying we go up to the extent of running forensic, investigations, at times drills, to make sure that there are no, how do I say, no vulnerabilities that we haven't, observed and fixed for. I tell you, security compromise for making the experience beautiful for a customer is a time bomb which is ticking. The day, and the day it goes off, you're gone, right? So especially, and which is what I'm saying, right, that without compromising on the security protocols, and let me tell you now, things have become so sophisticated that you really have, it's a full playbook, you just follow that, and you can bring in the right levels of security in your systems at all points in time, right? I would say that is one thing, never compromise with. Keep questioning, right? I'm not kidding, maybe hire the services of some, these are case studies on this, right? People hire hackers who actually come and they do a paid job. They're brilliant guys, right? And they'll just have a full scan of your system and tell you, yeah, by the way, I'm going to take, $20,000 for one session, but I'll tell you these two vulnerabilities, hire their services. Again, right? The rent I save in an office space, I'd rather put it there and make sure my system is super secure. But you're bang on. If you are planning to be a risk professional, great sector. Certainly risk has also gotten very evolved, right? It's become very sophisticated. So people who are getting into, just in case, making a career in risk, have a very bright future also. So if the folks here are looking at it, great place. There are less individuals who are there in that space, and lots of demand.
Sure, sir. So this has been really an interesting session, sir. And there are a lot of questions which are still yet to be answered. But in the interest of time, we'll be just collating it and sending it to you over mail, if that's fine.
Absolutely. And again, I wish you guys all the luck. Again, like I said, you're in a special pool of people. I still envy you, by the way. You guys would make brilliant professionals as you go out into your journeys. In summation, take the failures really well, guys. I think that's the other thing I would tell you. It's like I think it's Israeli proverb or something that when they go for the army training, they are not taught how to hit hard. First thing they are taught is that when they are hit hard, how to get back up again, right? So I'm saying that as you go out charting your plans, we all go with, like I said, stars in our eyes with lots of dreams. Sometimes they'll come true, sometimes they won't. Every day I have made it a point that the 10 communications I'll get in a day, 8 of them are going to be something which is not right, bad news, and maybe 2 will be good, right? Keep your expectation. Expect more bad news than good news. You'll always be very happy.
Sure, sir.
Thank you, Kush, for joining us today. So you did cover a lot of topics ranging from how to survive in the startup world and to definitely learning from your learnings. And if given an opportunity, we'll definitely take those ESOPs if they're put on the table. So on
you never give up on that.
yeah, and I'm sure that each one of us over here would agree that the session was truly enriching. And I, on the behalf of the entire Ingenium team and the XLRI XPGDM batch, would like to thank you for being with us over here. And it was a sheer pleasure and a delight to host you.
Thank you. And just collate the questions. When I have time, I'll definitely try to give answers back, guys, for sure. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for listening in. Bye now.
We'll be having the next session at 5, and that will be hosted by Tarun Jain and Niharika Khanna.
At XLRI, we
So good evening, everyone. We are Tarun and Niharika, your co-host for this leadership address by Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani, hosted by Professor Rajiv Roy. Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani is the founder of Info Edge India Limited, the company that owns Naukri.com, India's leading job site. It also owns 99acres.com, Jeevansathi.com, and Shiksha.com. Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani is the founder of Info Edge India Limited. Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani is graduated in economics from St. Stephen's College, Delhi University, and began his career working in advertising with Mentis. Post his graduation from IIM Ahmedabad in 1989, he joined the consumer marketing firm HMM Limited, now called GlaxoSmithKline Consumer Healthcare Limited. Mr. Sanjeev is active in various industry forums and is a contributor to the entrepreneurship ecosystem. He has served as the president of the Delhi chapter of TIE, the Indus Entrepreneur, and a member of the Global Board of Trustee of TIE. He serves as a member of the Council of Management of All India Association. He has been chair of the Internet Council of NASCOM and has served as the Venture Capital Investment Committee for the SIDBI Funds for the Startups. He is also a member of the National Startup Advisory Council. Apart from this, Mr. Sanjeev is also engaged in philanthropy. He is a founding trustee of Ashoka University. He is a member of the board of Chintan, a non-profit organization that works for the waste pickers in Delhi. Mr. Sanjeev has received several awards and honors. He received the ENY Entrepreneur of the Year Award in 2008 for business transformation. In 2019, he received Lifetime Achievement Award in IT given by the Financial Express. Recently, in October 2021, he was honored with the Pride of India Award for Lifetime Achievement from Chinthrai Ventures. Mr. Sanjeev was conferred with the Padma Shri Award in 2020. We welcome you, sir.
To host this session, we have with us our own Professor Rajiv Roy. Dr. Rajiv Roy is an entrepreneur educator, startup mentor, entrepreneur, and an investor. Currently, he is the professor of entrepreneurship at XLRI, Xavier School of Management, and the CEO of Exceed, the campus incubator. After completing his PGDM from IIM Ahmedabad, he had a short corporate stint and then he started his own ventures. His entrepreneur ventures include food processing, KPO, dairy products, and microfinance. He has been involved in entrepreneurship development in 14 countries across 5 continents. He has been a full-time faculty in business schools in India and USA. He has set up 6 incubators and accelerators in 4 different countries. He has trained over 1,000 entrepreneurs and over 300 entrepreneurship educators. He has been directly involved in mentoring and advising over 100 startups in their growth phase. He has advised, consulted with, and trained several large corporates and MNCs on topics related to the product development, leadership, and innovation. Welcome, sir. We hand over the floor to our esteemed speaker and request Professor Rajiv to take forward the discussion.
Thank you, Niharika. Thank you, Niharika. Thank you, Tarun. I think a little more than was necessary, a very generous introduction. And Sanjeev, great to see you here. And we're going to have a lovely conversation over here. And we are very privileged to have you here with us. And I was telling you the last time I had a chance to interact with Sanjeev was on a topic which is very similar to what we are doing today, where we are talking about consumer insights and its importance in building a business. So Sanjeev was the guest lecturer. He ended up taking 3 sessions for our marketing course. So first time I heard about consumer, a small village town boy talking about consumer, was when Sanjeev actually told me what the consumer is and what the consumer does as far as the enterprise is concerned. So we'll quickly get into it, Sanjeev. So the first question I might want to open up with is, you have been responsible for building several businesses, and you have actually helped several other businesses also build and scale. So any examples that come to you where businesses, startups, entrepreneurs have leveraged their consumer insights to build a business per se?
Thank you for inviting me here, Rajiv, and thank you for the introduction. No, look, I think there are very many of the successful businesses I have seen have been built on deep customer insights, and there are several examples. So I'll talk about maybe 1 or 2. If you take the case of Zomato, right? The first time I met Dipinder Goyal in 2010, founder of Zomato, it was then called Foodie Bay. The first time I met him, I asked him, this was in 2010, June. I asked him, Dipinder, how did you get this idea? Ye idea kahan se aaya? So Foodie Bay was a site that I had been using, and Hitesh Oberoi, my co-promoter and CEO of our company, he had been using separately. And then we discussed it and we said, what a good site. And what was great about the site was, there were many restaurant listing sites, but this was the only one which had all the menu cards of all the restaurants, which meant that you could actually go to the restaurant page, study the menu card, understand, figure out what dishes, what price, where, and then figure out where you wanted to go to for dinner or where you wanted to order from, right? Other sites had got the restaurant details, the photographs, the reviews, the address, the phone number, the location, but they did not have the menu cards, right? And I said, how did you get this idea? And he said, look, I was working in Bain Consulting, right? And in Gurgaon, 1 year out of IIT, he joined Bain Consulting and he was there for 3 years. And, Bain Consulting was an office where there were maybe 50 or 60 people working, mostly young, mostly male, mostly single, many living away from their hometowns. Right? So what that basically meant was they would not carry lunch to office. Right? Consulting hours, the office hours were long in the sense that you invariably ended up having 2 meals in the office, lunch and dinner, because you work late. Office had a cafeteria that would not serve food. You could, however, bring your own food and sit there and eat it. Now, to make life easy for the employees, the admin team had collated the menu cards, the delivery menu cards of maybe 70 or 80 restaurants that would deliver to that location. And they had kept them in a file folder in the cafeteria. And Deepinder said, look, at 1 p.m., there's a big line to access his file folder. It takes me 20 minutes in the line to get the access to the file folder. I get about 2.5 minutes. I quickly see what I want to order. Then I call up the restaurant and order it. And then the food comes in 45 minutes. Then I come back and eat it. It's 1 o'clock, I'm busy. I've got deadlines. I'm hungry. I've got my boss sitting on top of my head to deliver something by 3 o'clock, right? It was a huge pain. So he says, one Saturday, I came in and scanned all these menu cards and uploaded them on my personal page on the office intranet. And within 2 days, the IT infra guy in office came to me and said, my gosh, what have you done? Why is 95% of internal traffic going to your homepage? And he said the penny dropped. And I understood that aggregation of menu cards has got value. It's not just my problem, it's everybody's problem. Okay? So he went to the CEO and took his permission, and on weekends began to go out to work on a personal project. He basically began to gather menu cards, delivery menu cards or other menu cards of all restaurants in and around Delhi. And when he had 800 of them, he put it all together, put it on the net and called it Foodie Bay. And traffic began to come immediately without any advertising. Basically, he added a hot button that people wanted to see the menu cards and they would come. And it is the only place they were available. So basically, the customer, the prospective customer, the user, had given him a clear message that if you put all the menu cards together, we will value it, we will come. Now that was a customer insight which only he had, or at least only he acted upon, right? It's not a very difficult thing to put together menu cards, but only he thought of it. And he thought of it because he observed the consumer, right? And that's how Zomato was founded. A small observation about the consumer, a small piece of feedback, a market giving you a signal, right? About 10 years prior to that, we had launched Naukri. And Naukri was also based on a very similar insight. When I was in my last job at GlaxoSmithKline in 1989-90, I used to observe that all my colleagues, we sit in open hall, so I could see all my colleagues. All my colleagues in the marketing team, there were 7, 8 of us. Every time the office copy of Business India would come in, they would all read it from the back. Because in those days, there were 35 to 40 pages of appointment ads in the back of Business India. It was the #1 appointment ad medium for managers. And based on that simple observation, I understood that people are interested in knowing about jobs, whether or not they're looking for a job. They're always figuring out market mein kya chal raha hai, benchmarking, how am I doing, what are the jobs in the market, is my salary okay? And there will be animated discussions after that, right? So clearly jobs were a high interest category of information. I had figured that out by 1990. And in 97, we launched Naukri. The internet has just come into India. We launched Naukri by taking jobs from newspapers around the country. We used to get 29 newspapers and magazines from around the country into our office. And we would put the jobs up in a database and put it on the net. And that's how Naukri started. A simple observation of the user. So both Naukri and Zomato, the idea came from a customer insight. So very many successful businesses are built on deep customer insights. Deep customer insights about what? About an unsolved problem, about an unmet need, about some consumer behavior or want or need, which if you satisfy, right? If you fulfill, your product will be popular. And if your product is popular, that's half the battle won. You don't have to sell, the customer will buy. And that's a lot of success is that.
Thanks, Sanjeev. I think one of the things I get is that it's not just having the information, it's also probably the insight behind it. It's not what the customer does, and it's more like what the customer feels. I think the emotions behind it, the thoughts behind it also go into it. So practically, I mean, there are a lot of people over here who probably want to be entrepreneurs in the next 5 years, and many others probably who want to join the entrepreneurs and work with them. So how do you do the scanning? What are the tips you have of somebody who actually wants to go out there? I mean, just can't sit in a corner and keep looking at people. I mean, are there any particular ways in which you can go about it?
I just went about my life, working and doing stuff, and I observed stuff, right? Deepinder Goyal was doing his job in a consulting organization, and he observed stuff. So I think really it's about observing and interpreting. The best ideas are hidden in plain sight in the world around us. Are you smart enough to pick it up? Right? So it's about, what you think, how you think about what you see. So you must see and you must observe, but then you must internalize and figure out what it means and join the dots. So, it's a lot of it is in your head. You will get the ideas, but if you have the right stuff in your head and how you're processing information that you're receiving.
So I think, any thoughts? How do you build an engine around it? How do you make a process around it? How do you sort of make it a part of your enterprise? Not something that you just do in the early days, but something that you keep on doing, maybe in the later days as well.
So I'll tell you. So we launched Naukri. We were selling direct mail. We would just simply sell brochures letters to our prospective customers, saying, send us a job, send us some amount of money, and they would send us the checks. Right? We started with that. So in the beginning, most of the ideas, first 2 years, were mine. Right? Then gradually, once we the venture capital organization grew, and we put in sales teams all over the place. Now, by 2002, we had got about 240 salespeople in 11 offices around the country, going out and talking to recruiters and sending to them. A simple growth hack that we did. We simply created a Yahoo group. In those days, there were Yahoo groups, by email. And we put all the salespeople and all the senior management and the product and marketing and engineering people on that group. So maybe 270, 280 people on that group. And we told the salespeople, you're going out on 3, 4, 5 meetings a day. You're meeting clients. Whatever the client says, any feedback you get, this is working, this is not working, how about this? Please put it in this group. Right? So every day we would get feedback relayed to us from by our salespeople, from the customer. Now, for the next 3 or 4 years, all innovation, all product development, bulk of it was driven by just listening to customers through this method. Now, if you found that an idea came, a suggestion came, which made sense, which several customers are saying, you would put it into implementation. So it's very simple. Just listen to your customer and do what he or she is asking for. They will keep on buying your product or your service because you're giving them what they want. And that's how we did it. So you'll find your own growth hacks. Of course, a lot of it was also driven by when I would go into the market to meet consumers, meet customers on sales calls. I used to make sales calls a lot in those days. And I would not go and sell. I would simply go and say, I'm here to listen. I would take feedback. What are the problems? What are the improvements possible? Is there any idea? So I would not make a sales call as a sales call. The customer would buy anyway, especially if he finds that the CEO of the company is coming and taking notes and talking to him, right? They will buy. I didn't have to sell. So a lot of it was meeting customers yourself, and a lot of it was salespeople giving the feedback. So, to the young people here who are thinking of entrepreneurship or who are already founders, very, very often especially if you're doing a tech company, a tech product company, we regard ourselves as techies, as product people, and we do not like to go out and make sales calls and meet customers, right? That's not a natural thing for many people. I would say you have to overcome that and go out in the market, meet your customer, make sales calls yourself. You will learn so much.
Perfectly fine. In fact, from the examples that you've given, whether it is that of Deepinder or of yours, it came from a need that you felt yourself and people around you, you saw how they're behaving. I think other thing we see right now is a lot of enterprises that we have in India are creating for a customer who need not necessarily be an Indian. Made in India, made for the world is a trend that we see over here. Do you think there are going to be certain gaps when people are trying to think about what might be a problem in the rest of the world? How do they get over those knowledge gaps in terms of bridging the cultural distance or whatever other distances there might be?
So look, if you look at building in India for the world type of companies, they usually are not B2C companies. They're usually B2B companies. right? It's very hard to sit in India and imagine what the consumer, the end consumer in the US may be wanting and where there's a gap. It can't just occur to you. You have to be immersed in that environment. You have to understand the consumer. B2B, on the other hand, you probably know a few prospective clients. Maybe you've been a prospective client yourself. Maybe your first few clients are in India, and then you expand to the rest of the world, right? So really, it's hard to build B2C out of India for the rest of the world. I cannot think of too many companies trying to do that. Can you think of any?
No, I don't know whether if you think about Ola or maybe even a Zomato, but I think that was mainly a lot of acquisitions. But even Ola and
no, but Zomato after the foray overseas has come back to India and is focusing on India. I think Ola, I'm not sure how successful its overseas forays have been. So B2C is hard.
B2C is hard.
Okay, B2B is possible, and companies are doing it.
I think
but even B2B is somewhat risky. It's market penetration is difficult. So the success rate in terms of people who are trying to succeed is probably lower in global markets as compared to if you're focusing on India. Having said that, the price is larger, so it's probably worth the risk.
Okay. Do you think it makes sense? Let me just sort of contrast these two. If we talk about an OYO rooms, which started in India and then started looking at overseas markets, or we talk about Red Doors, a bunch of Indians located themselves outside India, started from outside, and then were able to probably grow a very different sort of a business, but more or less in the same space. Do you think that might make sense for some of the enterprises? We have global Indians now. We have a lot of people in Ukraine.
I would say the jury is still out on several of these startups as to how successful they will be. Because the truth is, you're not successful until you're profitable sustainably, and they're still therefore going through the journey. They're not there yet, so I would withhold judgment on their success. Zoho, for example, is widely successful out of Chennai, but serving the world, but it's B2B. It's B2B.
Okay, and I think same holds true for Freshdesk as well.
Yeah, Freshworks, Freshdesk, yeah, that's right.
Yep. Absolutely.
Both are B2B.
So do you think there's any other hack out there? Are we looking at probably Indian companies collaborating with startups abroad or entrepreneurs abroad?
Well, look, we are often taken up by recent successes, but if you look at Infosys and HCL or Wipro or TCS, right? They are successful companies out of India, giant companies, much bigger than all these startups put together, including my company, much bigger than all of us put together in terms of cash flow, in terms of profit, in terms of revenue. And they did it out of India. They did it B2B, and they did it without venture capital. So hats off to them. And they did it in the 90s, before venture capital even entered India.
I think just a couple of things that I have been seeing over the last couple of years, and I want your take on that. See, if I've been teaching entrepreneurship now for about 10, 12 years, and the first half of these 10, 12 years was very much an uphill task. It was like teaching to a stone wall. But suddenly there has been a huge difference in terms of how these courses are received. And I think people's perception of what they want to do with their lives and career has become very different now. There are a lot of people who want to become entrepreneurs, and many others who actually want to work in a startup rather than work for a large enterprise. So again, with my responsibilities in the placement, what I see is we no longer have the preponderance of FMCG and banks in the kind of jobs that the students want. And it's actually quite much the opposite. Now they want to join tech, they want to join startups, and it's a completely different game that they're getting into, I would say. Do you think there needs to be a different set of skills over here, consumer insights or anything even more than that when it comes to?
Look, I think the fundamental skills do not change. You got to be good with people, you got to be a team player, good analysis skills, you got to be really hardworking. But there are a couple of differences. Number one is startups are probably a lot more volatile than existing old large organization. I remember in my time in Hindustan Lever, then now called Hindustan Unilever, it was an 18-month management training program. You went and spent a week, you went and spent 6 weeks in a place called Eta in a backward area of India, in the villages, right? I don't see the young people doing that at all anymore. They would not join those companies, right? If you did that. Now the management training program has shortened. People's aspirations have changed. Right? So, see, the people who get into the best engineering colleges and the best business schools in India are largely people from middle-class families. Okay? Parents are very often in employment somewhere. Very often in the government, public sector, banks, police, railways, academics, profs. If you ask your XLRI class, how many of you will call themselves middle class? I'm willing to bet 80% of the hands will go up. I've tried this experiment in various business schools. Roughly 60-70% of the hands go up. They regard themselves as middle class. Now, middle class families in India traditionally have had this great quest for financial security. Right? Study hard, get a good education, get a good job, settle down. Right? And then run your career, build your career in large organizations. So we were not brought up to be entrepreneurs and risk takers. But somewhere I think the aspirations have changed. And partly that's because of opportunity that are available, partly it's because of capital that's available, partly it's because of the economic growth that we're seeing around us that are creating those opportunities, and partly it's because others have done it before them. So the role models are now different. Right? The role models become different, aspirations become different. And that's why it's happened. But you're right, it happened totally. So I remember in my class of 175 when I'm Ahmedabad, if you had asked how many of you want to become entrepreneurs, maybe at some point in time in your life, maybe 10 or 15 hands would have gone up. At some point in time in my life, I'd like to be an entrepreneur. If you ask that question today, maybe 30, 40, 50% of the hands will go up that at some point in time in my life, I will be an entrepreneur. If not immediately, but at some point in time. And that is a big difference. So actually the new type of entrepreneur in India, see, so India's brightest kids academically get into India's best institutions for college and postgrad. They are typically middle class and they've been trained to be risk averse, conditioned as they're growing up. Right? That conditioning is changing. Parents are now okay if the child does a startup. I remember when I quit my job, I had 5 years in 2 MNCs and I had from Ahmedabad and people thought I was crazy. Right? Today, parents will say with pride, my son is doing a startup, my daughter is doing a startup. Right? And this social acceptability, this family support, psychological support, that's a big difference. It's okay to dream. It's okay to be different. It's okay to do your own thing and go out and try it and see what happens. Also in corporate India, I remember, I quit my job in 1990, 32 years ago. At that time, if you were from an IIM and you quit a job in a large MNC and you tried your hand at entrepreneurship for 3 or 4 years and you did not succeed and you wanted to come back, your career was over. I mean, you were doomed to a glass ceiling of middle management, right? You were called a failure. He failed and he came back, and that experience is not valued. Today, entrepreneurial experience is valued in large companies, right? So I remember people who came back and wanted to come back would eventually get frustrated and then go off to the Middle East or Africa and seek a career there, and they would not continue in large organizations in India. So all that has changed.
But in fact, let me ask you a question. This is something that often interests me. And I do ask this question. I think at the start of any session, I'll ask how many of you want to become an entrepreneur? And you gave a number of 15%, or was it number of 15 people who would probably—
15 people are 175, less than 10% in those days. Now I'm willing to bet it's 40-50%.
Okay. Now, let's just think it out. I'm sure you have probably not calculated the exact numbers. Out of the 175, how many you think have actually started their own businesses in this period?
Actually, many more than would have put up the hand there.
Yeah.
Many more have done it. But that's because the environment changed. Liberalization happened. I graduated in 89. 91 was new economic policy. A whole range of opportunities opened up, right? And so many more have ended up becoming, maybe 40 or 50 people have ended up becoming entrepreneurs, maybe 60. But look, I'm 59 now, 58, I'll be 59 this year. So as you approach your 40s and 50s, if you've done reasonably well in a large organization and have saved enough money, and then you say, hey, maybe I'll try a second career. That also happens.
Sure. Got it. In fact, informal, we were trying it out in our batch, again, 180 in our batch. Very strange number of 100+ people have actually tried their hand at entrepreneurship at some point of time. So it's a huge number. I think the numbers are far bigger. Many people don't realize that entrepreneurship is going to be a bigger part of your career than you think it was going to be. So I think that's one of the things to say. There are a couple of questions which have come in from the audience over here. So I just thought I'll go through some of these. One of the questions is around the business model, which is around the voice of the customer. But sometimes it is just that the customer is asking for too much. It may not be practical or it may not be feasible to service the customer and his requirements. So how does one filter them out?
Well, obviously, it has to be financially viable for you to do it, right? So you're filtering it out. I mean, a customer say reduce price of 40%. You're not going to go out and do that if that kills your profit, right? So you do not act on every piece of feedback that you get, but you should be smart. But you should be getting all the feedback and then figuring out which ones make sense and which ones don't make sense. So ultimately, it has to be a win-win. It has to make sense for the customer and for you. And that's how partnerships are forged, that both are winning.
And then another question, actually, there's a person who has actually given us an example. Can we say that banking and fintech services are examples of B2C where companies are going global by opening overseas branches? So maybe a ICICI bank or?
Yeah, so listen, let's say when an Indian bank opens a branch overseas, it is very often very tiny sliver of the market going after overseas. It starts off with overseas Indians, right? I've yet to see an Indian financial services firm go truly global. I can't think of any. And understand one thing, financial services are among the most regulated industries in the world. So it's not going to be easy for someone to, suddenly say, hey, I'll become this big bank in the US. It doesn't happen. India doesn't have big overseas banks. Despite the financial clout of the global financial institutions, the overseas financial institutions operating in India are addressing a very small sliver of the market. So actually, financial services is a very difficult thing to make go global because of regulations.
Okay, I think next question I'm looking at, we have already touched upon it in parts, but we can go a little deeper into it. So how should leaders use consumer insights to guide decision-making and improve the customer experience? So specifically, let's talk about the customer experiences.
So look, let's look at example of how Naukri works. The insight tells us that people want to see jobs. And if you give them all the jobs, you get traffic without advertising. That's the insight I started with. The yardstick I set when we launched Naukri in 1997 was, can we promise 1,000 jobs live any point in time? Minimum. Now, of course, there are 6 lakh jobs there, but we started 1,000 jobs. And when we got all the newspapers and magazines into the office every week, we figured that if you keep the jobs live for 1 month, right, on the site, you will have more than 1,000 jobs easily. So what we said was, all the jobs that are printed and published anywhere in India, on our site, live for 4 weeks, minimum 1,000 jobs. So we put the boundaries on the promise. A very specific promise was made, right? Now, what happened? We hit a virtuous circle. We've got the most traffic. We've got the most jobs. Therefore, we get the most traffic because people want to see jobs. We get the most traffic. Therefore, we get the most response. We get the most response. Therefore, we get the most clients. We get the most clients. Therefore, we get the most jobs. So initially, we put in published jobs only. But very soon, in a few months' time, we said, just send us your jobs directly. 6,000 rupees a year, annual subscription, unlimited jobs through the year in your company on our website. Now, when that happened, people began to send us lots and lots of jobs. The more jobs they sent us, the more traffic we got. The more traffic we got, the more jobs they would send us. So it became this self-fulfilling prophecy, this virtuous circle. Now, when that happened, we made money, but we would invest that money back in technology, innovation, engineering, servers, product, sales team, servicing, advertising. So it will go on strengthening this circle. But the whole thing was based on the insight that more jobs leads to more traffic. Aggregation of jobs got value. People want to see jobs. Now, in the year 2000, we got our first significant competitor, and they raised venture capital. We had no venture capital at a stage. They raised venture capital and they advertised their launch on the India-Pakistan cricket series in Sharjah. Right? And when their launch ad budget was twice our annual turnover, the launch ad budget, right? But they did not have the customer insight. They priced a single job listing as 3,500 rupees because they were benchmarking to print. Where our goal was very simple. Just get the most jobs. Right? If you get the most jobs, you build a fortress. Therefore, price it at dirt cheap at 6,000 rupees for an annual subscription. And you will keep on getting the most traffic. And then your problem is solved. You hit a flywheel. So this customer insight was central to our strategy of pricing, of job aggregation, of breaking even, the financial planning, everything.
Perfectly fine. I think it makes sense. So we have had a very interesting question from Sunil. So it says that just like we have Naukri for jobs in 2000, can we have something similar for those who want to have their own startup? And he says that because he feels there are several people in this age group of 40 to 50 who feel trapped in their jobs and want to start out, but they feel that either they are too old to do that, or that once they stumble, they very badly affect their chances in the job market. And maybe they don't physically have the capacity for a 14-hour workday anymore as well. So these are the things that seems to be stopping them.
Unfortunately, doing a startup, succeeding at doing a startup, it's an effort and idea that consumes you. It's 24/7. So to say, I'll work 5-6 hours a day and build a great big company, it's not going to happen. It might happen, but it's very unlikely. So if you want to do a startup, you've got to be clear that, listen, it's going to take the mickey out of me. In Hindi, so I was on a panel discussion with Sanjeev Agrawal of Daksh and then Helion Ventures. And he made a very insightful observation in Hindi. He said, company banane mein aadmi ka tel nikal jata hai. Yeah, so very few people therefore do 2 successful companies. It takes a decade or more, 2 decades sometimes. Right? And it's the effort of a lifetime, actually, to build a successful startup. So go in knowing that fully well. There are unfortunately no shortcuts to this.
Okay. So I think a question I would like to ask Sanjeev Bikhchandani is, right now, Indian market, what are the insights you think that are significant for entrepreneurs to know? And I talk about this in the context of the 4th industrial revolution, the COVID pandemic that has hit us so badly. So what do you think are the major consumer insights that we're looking at?
Well, look, it's kind of hard for me to say that, because if I had that insight, I'd probably be doing something about it or backing somebody doing something about it, right? And insights are never top down. See, trends are top down. There's a trend towards tech, right? An insight will have to be very specific, very narrow. I observed 5 customers. This is what struck me. Let me see if more customers feel this. And then maybe you're onto something. So it is bottom up. And it is usually very, very specific. And initially it looked like it's very small and niche, right? So when we were launching Naukri, I remember I'd gone to a few seniors from IIM who were in the recruitment business. And I said, yaar, main ye karne ki soch raha hu, on the internet. And, they'd vaguely heard of the internet, didn't know what it was. There were fewer than 10,000 internet accounts in the country at that time. I remember at least 3 people told me, yaar, tu pagal ho gaya? This is so small, so narrow. Yeah, maybe a few software companies, but just a few dozen. You can never make money on this. And what is this 6,000 rupee pricing you're doing? You will forever remain a small company. So, very large companies started off as apparently niche products. When the niche becomes mainstream, okay, is when you become big, right? And therefore, the idea you start off with may actually be a niche idea today. But right place, right time, you be there at it, you make it work, it could be a giant company. But it'll take a decade or more.
Sure. Perfectly understood. Okay, I think the last question I probably want to ask you is a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs, a lot of people that who want to start their own enterprise. So any two pieces of advice that you would like to have? Or...
So what I tell young entrepreneurs all the time is that the customer's money is more important than the investor's money. So a lot of people have these venture capital dreams that I will raise so many $millions at so much valuation, the next round, the next round, the next round. It does happen to some people. But, fundamentally, if a company is to survive long term, you got to be getting customer money and making money, right? And if you are getting the customer's money and you're getting it repeatedly from the same customer, and you're getting it at a price that's higher than your cost, then chances are you have a viable business so long as you can get enough customers. And if you're getting the customer's money on these terms, the investor's money will almost certainly follow should you want it, because investors love to invest behind companies that are getting the customer's money. But it's not necessarily true the other way around. If you get the investor's money first, it does not necessarily mean you get the customer's money. Because getting the investor's money is about impressing two MBAs across the table with your PowerPoint. Very often, the first check, right? But to get the customer's money is a lot harder because the product has to make sense. The offering has to make sense. The customer's not your uncle or your aunt or your mother or your father. He's not going to give you money as a favor. The thing has to work. What you're selling has to work with them. And that's a little harder. But that's what will make a durable business, that what I'm producing works for my customers.
Okay, thank you. And a question of my personal interest to just round it off. I don't see you being very active in the edtech field.
No, we had invested in a company called Merit Nation. It didn't work out that well for us. We have invested in a company called Adda 24/7. That's doing rather well. We have invested in a company called Uday. That's just starting. We got a few edtech plays, but no, we did not invest in any of the 3 or 4 giant edtech companies at the early stage, whether it's a Byju's or it was a Upgrade or it was an academy. So look, there's some you miss. I mean, it's part of life.
Okay, so any sectors you are a little bullish on? I know again.
So the way we look at it, we don't look at sectors top down. We do it bottom up. We meet 1,000 entrepreneurs a quarter. We invest behind 2 or 3, right? So if I had gone top down, we would never have invested in Zomato or Policybazaar. If you told me, restaurant listings is a good sector in 2010, I would have said, are you crazy? Okay. If we met the company, we like what they're doing, we experienced the site ourselves, we like the founders, so back them. Likewise for Policybazaar, we met Yashish and Alok before they launched, right? And so the category did not exist. So if you want to back category creators, you can't do it top down. And that's the way we like to do it. We like to be the first check-in. But yes, I mean, fintech has possibilities. Health tech has got possibilities going forward. But you back specific companies. You don't back sectors.
Perfectly fine. Okay. Thank you, Sanjeev. Thank you for a very insightful meet, and thank you for spending your valuable time with us. I think it has been extremely helpful.
Thank you. All the best. All the best, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of the entire XPGDM batch, I would like to extend my vote of thanks to you, sir. It was an enlightening and a very informative session. The wisdom you have shared with us is invaluable. We want to thank you, sir, for taking out your valuable time on a Sunday evening.
Thank you so much.
And us here for the start of Conclave. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
We would also like to thank Professor Rajiv for moderating this wonderful session.
Always.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
So before I pass on the stage to Ankita and Tejaswa for the next session, I would like to call upon Ayush from the case competition committee to announce the results. So over to you, Ayush.
Hello, good evening, everyone. So as we know that this Ingenium conclave was accompanied by a case competition, which is known as EMBA. It was organized by corporate competition team at XLRI Jamshedpur. So for those who are not aware, let me just brief you what this competition was all about and how different rounds of this competition was conducted. So let me share. Tarun, I am not able to share screen.
Just give me a minute. Yeah, try now.
Yeah. Is the screen visible?
Yeah, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so let me just brief you what this competition was all about and how different rounds of this competition were conducted. So firstly, the notification for the competition was posted on D2C platform on 15th of February this year. And the registrations were thrown open to the participants who were supposed to get registered themselves in a team of 1 to 3 members. And the deadline for the same was 24th of February 2022, 8 p.m. In the next round, the participants were given the quiz of around 20 MCQ type questions in 20 minutes, and the following which a business case study was released to all the participants for analysis. In the next round, the participants were supposed to submit a solution to a problem and suggest recommendation to the entrepreneur who was facing problems to venture a new startup in the furniture industry. So the deadline for the submission was 3rd March of 2022. Of all the submissions, 6 teams were shortlisted and were invited to present their final presentation solution to the jury members. And the presentation round was conducted on 5th March of 2022 at 11 a.m. And today the results are announced for the same. So we have got many submissions and presentations. All the submissions and presentations, I must say, were really amazing, and I appreciate all the efforts put in by all the participants in this competition. After following a discussion and intense discussion session, our jury members have reached final result of selecting 3 teams as finalists. So here we have the results. The second runner-up prize goes to Team Titans Go from the college SIES School of Business Studies, Navi Mumbai, comprising of 3 members, Ishu Sharma, Anuja Kulkarni, and Akanksha Nadkarni. The first runner-up prize goes to Team XLRI from XLRI Jamshedpur, consisting of 3 members, Shweta Verma, Shivangi Gupta, and Kumar Utsav. And finally, the winner is Team Seekers from the college Indian Institute of Management, IIM Bangalore, consisting of 2 members, Anandaroop Bhaumik and Urja Roy. So on behalf of Corporate Competition Committee, I really thank all the jury members for sparing some time and make this event successful. At the same time, I also congratulate all the finalists who have achieved this achievement and wish you all the very best in your future competitions. Thank you so much.
At XLRI, we focus on a management education framework that is integrative and offers students an opportunity to develop and pursue new ideas at the same time. We constantly evolve our curriculum in line with changing economic and social landscapes. Besides the flagship programs, XLRI has added many new executive and certificate programs over the years to meet the growing demand of various industry sectors. Our virtual interactive learning program and entrepreneurship programs are our two key offerings.
Learning at XLRI is different from the way learning happens elsewhere. One reason is because of the use of cases. We use cases to relate academic concepts with industry application.
Two dimensions that I would talk about: sustainability of our leadership, our journey in our leadership, sustainability of our careers is dependent on ethics and how we live a high ethics, high integrity life. Back in the days, before any of the other institutes started doing it, we had business ethics as a compulsory course. For me, that consonance of my own ethical framework with the institute and now my own ethical framework with my company, that served me immensely. So today when I stand and talk about ethics, it comes from this core of me. And Excel helped frame this and helped give it shape even before I knew what this was all about. And now it's who I am, it's the core of who I am.
Gave me confidence, Excel gave me purpose, and Excel gave me a lot of confidence to try different things. That's a huge set of experiences I had. And that stood me in good stead because I went to become a management trainee in Hindustan Lever, where I could never have been without the Excel ticket, and without having excelled in Excel, I wouldn't have made it to HUL. And I've been with Unilever all 25 years of my career, so clearly the move from Excel to HUL was great for me. I really think that Excel has grown from strength to strength. It's maintained its reputation. There are a number of students who continue to excel year after year and have created a community of very successful professionals in India.
I've gone on to sell disposable diapers to Indians who don't even throw away the wrappers, forget about throwing expensive diapers, selling pizzas to Italians, and now of course selling shoes back in India. Excel is what's taught me the marketing, the consumer insight, all of that. Completely the credit goes to Excel.
Associated with it from 1983 to 85, and it has helped me think about the society a lot more every day of my work and every day of my life.
Excel gave me the experience for 2 years in a community living, and I benefited a lot. I made some of my best friends there. Secondly, it instilled in me the values that XLRI stands for, but above all, integrity. And finally, it gave me the aspiration and ambition, together with the determination that has probably helped me get where I am today. Besides, I have to say that the 2 years in Excel were great fun. All the time we were in Excel, we wanted to graduate and get away. And ever since, we've wanted to reminiscence about the 2 years there. It is a great experience. Fly Excel, fly high.
At XLRI, we At XLRI, we focus on a management education framework that is integrative and offers students an opportunity to develop and pursue new ideas at the same time. We constantly evolve our curriculum in line with changing economic and social landscapes. Besides the flagship programs, XLRI has added many new executive and certificate programs over the years to meet the growing demand of various industry sectors. Our virtual interactive learning program and entrepreneurship programs are our two key offerings.
XLRI is different from the way learning happens elsewhere. One reason is because of the use of cases. We use cases to relate academic concepts with industry application.
Two dimensions that I would talk about: sustainability of our leadership, our journey in our leadership, sustainability of our careers is dependent on ethics and how we live a high ethics, high integrity life. Back in the days, before any of the other institutes started doing it, we had business ethics as a compulsory course. For me, that consonance of my own ethical framework with the institute, and now my own ethical framework with my company, that served me immensely. So today when I stand and talk about ethics, it comes from this core of me. And Excel helped frame this and helped give it shape even before I knew what this was all about. And now it's who I am. It's the core of who I am.
Gave me confidence, Excel gave me purpose, and Excel gave me a lot of confidence to try different things. That's a huge set of experiences I had. And that stood me in good stead because I went to become a management trainee in Hindustan Lever, where I could never have been without the Excel ticket, and without having excelled in Excel, I wouldn't have made it to HUL. And I've been with Unilever all 25 years of my career, so clearly the move from Excel to HUL was great for me. I really think that Excel has grown from strength to strength. It's maintained its reputation. There are a number of students who continue to excel year after year and have created a community of very successful professionals in India.
I've gone on to sell disposable diapers to Indians who don't even throw away the wrappers, forget about throwing expensive diapers, selling pizzas to Italians, and now of course selling shoes back in India. Excel is what's taught me the marketing, the consumer insight, all of that. Completely the credit goes to Excel.
Associated with it from 1983 to 85, and it has helped me think about the society a lot more every day of my work and every day of my life.
Excel gave me the experience for 2 years in a community living, and I benefited a lot. I made some of my best friends there. Secondly, it instilled in me the values that XLRI stands for, but above all, integrity. And finally, it gave me the aspiration and ambition, together with the determination that has probably helped me get where I am today. Besides, I
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we are here to welcome Mr. Sharat Dhal. Sharat is the Chief Operating Officer with PolicyBazaar.com, leading global fintech player. He looks after the marketing, PR, product technology, sales, and service operations for the brand. Prior to joining Policy Bazaar, he was the managing director at TripAdvisor and Expedia. Most recently, he served as the chief operating officer at Yatra Online Private Limited, a one-stop marketplace for all the travel-related services. He is also advisory board member with Credit Enable, a global credit insights and technology solutions company. Sharath is a graduate from BITS Pilani and is an esteemed alumni of XLRI Jamshedpur from the batch of 93. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Tejashwat.
We would like to address the batch for 10-15 minutes, sir. Then post that we have a set of questions. We'll take up that.
Okay. So you'd like me to address them?
It's up to you if you want to give your few.
No, I think, yeah, I mean, I think let's, maybe start with some questions and then we can
Sure,
get
sir.
into, yeah, some Gyan Baji at the end.
Sure, sir. Before we proceed with the important stuffs, we would like to know a little about your journey. So we would like to know more about your professional journey. You went from HUL and then rural marketing to an e-commerce company at the time when the internet was at a very nascent stage in India. What were the reasons for that move, and have you ever regretted it?
Okay. So, I think it was very interesting because I was on the conventional MBA path. I was with HUL. I, did a stint in sales and then in brand. And then what happened was that Levers did a kind of a new ventures. They set up a new ventures initiative in the year 99. And I was, selected to head the rural venture, which was called Project Shakti. And interestingly, that phase was one of the best phases of my career at Levers. Because it was highly unstructured. I was suddenly, I was fairly junior in the system, yet I was reporting to a director who was handling new ventures. He was on the board. And suddenly I was making presentations to the Levers chairman and all, which was, a big deal. And it was a new experience, kind of heading a very tiny, small unit, setting it up from scratch, hiring people, trying different things and trying to make a success of it. So the idea was that it was actually, funded like a startup within Levers in that sense. And you had to make regular presentations to the board to get cleared to do the next level of stuff. And that was really, really interesting and kind of got me excited about working in this whole slightly more unstructured environment than what a regular Levers system was. And so when, I was at a stage then to decide, after I'd spent about 4 years and scaled up Project Shakti to a significant level, there was this thing to go back into the regular system and, run one of the branches at Levers in the sales and distribution system, or to continue with, trying to take Shakti to the next level. And it's at that time that, out of the blue, an opportunity came from India Times, and I didn't know anything about the internet space or anything at all. And this thing just popped up. This guy called me and he said, look, Sequoia is going to invest in India Times, and we're going to do an IPO going forward and this and that. So I quickly went and Googled stuff about Sequoia and figured that, they were a big deal. They were one of the biggest VC firms in the world. And, I met a couple of their partners, this, that, and then I said, I thought about this, and I decided to take it up, to head their travel and shopping business. And the reasons at that time were really, I don't know, when I look back, they're interesting. So one of the reasons was that I thought that, technology would be a key part of people's lives and our working careers. And I, at that time, didn't know the T of technology at all. So I said, the best way to learn is to jump into the whole thing and challenge myself and learn before others learn. And I felt that that space would the change would be constant, and it would keep me young and in touch if I wanted to stay up to speed with things. Also, I then I thought, oh yeah, what's the worst that can happen? I mean, maybe Amazon will come into this country in a few years' time, and I'll have this great experience of having worked with levers for a decade, and also having shopping and online experience, and I'll be in a great place to head Amazon in India. So with that in mind, I said, okay, let me jump into it. So I don't know whether they were very, very rational reasons and all that, but when I look back, it was interesting. I mean, Amazon didn't come in that quickly, but Expedia came in a year and a half after I joined. And, I was selected to be the managing director for India, and Expedia was the largest online travel company in the world. So things worked out really well. And it's really funny because, my boss, who was the director at Levers and a person I regard very, very highly and great friend of mine today, he said, "Kya kar raha hai tu? Internet 10 साल लगेंगे internet के लिए यहाँ पे. There's no scope यार, छोड़ दे. क्या कर रहा है?" And fortunately, for once, he was wrong. Things moved quickly almost after I went in there. And after that, it's been an interesting journey. So I don't think I've regretted it. In fact, I think that was a great risk that I took, and it paid off very, very well.
Before we move on to the next question, I just have one thing to say that, in this particular term, we are actually studying about, we have a case study on Project Shakti. So it is a really wonderful thing that an alum of Excel who went on to lead Project Shakti is coming back to address a student who is currently studying about Project Shakti. It's
I think I should take one guest lecture on that course. Yeah, I know a little bit about it.
So moving on to the next question, what fascinates you about the e-commerce space? You have worked under a number of sectors: FMCG, online shopping, travel, and insurance tech. So which sector has the potential to grow even faster, especially in this post-COVID era?
So I think a number of things fascinate me about the whole e-commerce space. I think the first thing is that, and that's probably because of the cycle that we are in and the point in the cycle that India is, it's a sector with, very rapid growth across the board. I mean, you see it in most, in various online sectors, because of the fact that, the internet is reaching further, smartphones have gotten to a large part of the population. And behavior change is happening rapidly in this whole space. So what this rapid growth actually does is that as an organization, it creates a tremendous amount of energy and excitement. It's always great when your sales are up like 50%, 100% month on month, rather than being 2% up like in the old regular sectors. So it creates a lot of energy and a lot of buzz, which is really exciting there. The second thing is that, if you want to succeed in a sector where there is rapid growth, you need to be really agile as well. You need to move fast. You need to have a bias for action. You need to, they talk about this thing called fail fast. I mean, you would have all heard about it. And I think that's really, really critical in a space where, there is rapid growth, because often you have to take decisions where data is not fully, baked in. You have to take it on the basis of gut. And the important thing then becomes that you do things, you measure them quickly, and if they're not working out, you move to the next thing, rather than spending months in terms of building out a particular product or a feature. So I think that's the other thing, that you have to be really, really agile. And that's really, again, very, very interesting as well. I think the third thing is that consumer behavior also is evolving constantly. I mean, when you looked at online shopping in India in the early days, it was all about COD and stuff. Today, COD is completely finished. Behavior has changed. Everybody's comfortable paying online, etc., etc., etc. So as an organization, you need to be absolutely clued into these kind of changes and need to move very, very, very rapidly as well out there. So it also gives you, as a product and marketing person, a tremendous opportunity to study consumer behavior, to make rapid changes, try different things, which makes it a very, very fascinating and exciting space overall. So I think for all these reasons, really, it's all about speed, it's all about change, which makes it highly, highly exciting, I think. And I think that, coming to the question about, I've worked in a bit in the shopping space, a bit in the online travel. I mean, a lot of years in the online travel space, actually. And then also in the insurtech area, and started out in FMCG. So the most exciting thing for me is that the FMCG space has been, kind of shaken up by this whole D2C brands, which is really, really interesting because, it was a space where I often would see ads for, like, I was a brand manager for a brand called Breeze. And I'd often see ads after 10 years after I'd moved on, but to a large extent, the ad was pretty much the same. And I always thought that, the space is kind of, where it was or whatever. But today, I think that the D2C brands have completely changed the whole environment. It's not only for the startups, but even for the existing incumbents like a Levers or a Dabur or a Marico. They have also realized that there are niches which can be targeted by brands, which can be purely online. You can today come in and attack a particular niche because you have the ability to do things as far as marketing, distribution, packaging, production at a very, very low scale, which earlier was not possible. You had to set up a large factory, etc., and all of that to even produce a few batches and all of that. Today, that's much, much easier as a brand to just create packaging, push in a product very into modern trade, or maybe just, upper end online through the e-commerce platforms, and attack a particular niche. And that's why you have a number of brands like, Mama, Epigamia, Whole Truth. I mean, they're just popping up every day. And they're addressing upper end niches, which are highly profitable niches, which earlier, FMCG brands were not able to target because they were extremely small. So I think the FMCG space also is, completely changed in that sense. As far as insurance is concerned, I think, it's penetration is so low that there's such a massive runaway for growth. We haven't even got started as far as online insurance is concerned. A large part of it is still assisted. It is a complex product, so a large part of it is still, researched online, bought somewhat offline and stuff like that. So there's a lot of element of technology which is coming in to try and make the customer journeys, the end-to-end customer journeys, completely seamless. And I think that's the so there's definitely, that's an exciting space as well. Online travel, to my mind, is going to have a fabulous couple of years, just because everybody's, been kind of cooped up for the last couple of years. So there's going to be massive revenge travel happening over this year and the next, hopefully this year. I mean, I think if COVID is done and dusted. So I think all of these spaces, massively exciting. Yeah, little to choose between them.
Thank you, sir. So from that, what we spoke about the insurance tech industry having great potential, we move to our next question. So what, according to you, are the key drivers of growth for insurance aggregator market? Okay. So I think if you look at the insurance market in general in India, so if you think about an aggregator is only useful from a customer's point of view if there are many options to choose from. Yeah, because that's when comparison becomes important. In the insurance space today, there are like more than 50 companies who are competing in life insurance or in health insurance. So from a customer's point of view, if you have to choose what particular product you're looking for, it becomes extremely difficult for you to go from one brand to the other brand site and look for and compare features across it. Very different from, if you think about it, today, online travel, domestic flights, for example, Indigo is about 60% of the market. Yeah. So
in some sense, many people just say, I might as well go straight to Indigo and book my ticket there, rather than going to a Make My Trip or a Yatra or whichever other aggregator you might choose. But if you look at the insurance space, there are 50 brands out there. It's impossible, and all of them offering different products, different features, etc. So I think the role of an insurance aggregator in this country is highly relevant from a consumer point of view, because prices are different, product features are different, everything is fairly different. Now, as far as growth of insurance aggregators are concerned, I think it will be driven to that extent by the insurance market as well. And if you see, a lot of our advertising at Policy Bazaar is not only driving the brand, but also driving the category and the need for health insurance and the need for life insurance and term life insurance to cover risk in your life. So the category, if you look at the category today, insurance penetration is 3.7% in India. The global average is about double that, and the developed countries have penetrations in the 15 to 20%. So when you look at that, the runway for growth is massive. That's there. The second part is that as a category, insurance is really a product most suited for the middle class. Not most suited, but most relevant for the middle class. Because the bottom end of the market, the government has a large number of schemes that provide subsidized healthcare, etc. for them. The upper end of the market, the guys have enough money to pay for their health, for their medical needs, and so on. It's the middle class which has one earning member in the family maybe, and if something happens to that person, it often sends the family's future into complete risk, and their world goes topsy-turvy, and that's where insurance as a risk cover could absolutely be super relevant. So now, if middle class is what we are targeting to a large extent, the Indian middle class, as incomes grow, are only going to grow larger and larger and faster, and that's what's happening. If you look at the middle class in India, it's probably over 300 million in number, and growing rapidly as incomes grow. So definitely, I think that's the other piece which is there. Lastly, we are still, as in the insurance market, largely targeting the urban, and especially online insurance is largely targeting urban and tier 1, tier 2 cities. It's only now that, in the last year or so, that Policy Bazaar as a brand has even looked at the regional market in that sense, regional advertising, regional distribution. We've, put out, we also realized that a lot of people want to research online, but then afterwards feel more comfortable buying through physical contact and so on. So we've also now set up about 30 stores across the country. We have sales support in 7 languages across South India, as well as the East and in the West. So as we get into some of these markets, those are all potential for future growth. So I think those are the factors, those are the key drivers for the insurance market and for insurance aggregators like us.
Thank you for the answer, sir. So as we are on the insurance aggregator sector only, so let's delve a little deeper into that. There are a number of growing concerns in the industry that insurance aggregators are getting hurting the brand reputation of the legacy insurance brands. The recent example, we know that the exit of HDFC Ergo from one of the platforms. So what are your views on the exit, and what are the recommendations for the business strategy in perspective of the insurance aggregator to avoid such exits?
So, insurance aggregators hurting these brands is absolutely, I don't buy that at all. Yeah. I think it's a business strategy on the part of some brands to say, okay, I would like to build my own website, drive all, anybody who wants to buy a policy should buy it directly with me and not via an insurance aggregator. Yeah, I think that's the philosophy which is driving something like an HDFC Ergo to go off the aggregator platforms. But I just think, if I'll give an example. Okay, I could say tomorrow that, listen, I'm not going to do any advertising on Google. I'm going to just drive direct traffic to my brand website. Now, that just doesn't make sense when, as consumers find going to Google more relevant than directly coming to a particular website. They'd like to come, they'd like to check what options are there, and then decide which one they want to go to. As a marketer, if I say I'm not going to participate where there is traffic, where there are consumers, I think that's being a little short-sighted. And the aggregator. So there was a piece of research which showed that 80% of all insurance purchasers come to Policy Bazaar before buying an insurance policy. So, when you think about that number and you're a marketer at one of the insurance brands, why would you not participate on a platform like that? It doesn't make sense. Because that only 80% will come, only 10 will buy from Policy Bazaar. The rest of them are coming and then checking it out on the brand or buying offline and the various channels. I think as a marketer, you have to go where the customer is. You can't push water uphill. I think some of these brands are trying to do that by saying, okay, I will only get everybody to my site. I think it's being a little short-sighted. And I see, as many people who want to get off, there are people who want to get on. There's this company called Life Insurance Corporation of India, which is the largest insurance company in India, which recently tied up with us to come on board. So I think, these are things that happen. People, decide one way or the other. I'm pretty sure HDFC Ergo will be back on all the insurance aggregator platforms pretty soon.
So thank you for that wonderful answer. And being a Policy Bazaar customer myself, I can totally relate to how easy it makes the life for all of us.
Thank you, Ankita. Thank you.
But sir, when we look at the rural population, I think insurance market is a thing which is not very highly penetrated in that particular market. So how do insurance aggregators plan to explore that or penetrate this segment? I mean, this question is more important as they are still far away from the .com bubble as well as the insurance market.
Yeah, see, if you look at it, rural, we are far away from rural areas actually right now. If you look at it, online insurance is still largely an urban phenomena. A large part of our sales does come in from tier 2 and tier 3 cities today. But rural, to that extent, the way, for example, FMCG or LIC is, we are far away from that. And one of the reasons for that is that I think that, smartphones, regular phones, internet has started getting into all of these places. So from that point of view, I think directionally, that's the direction in which we will go as well. However, what we've seen is that all our research also shows, when we talk to customers, shows that, and you ask them, why don't you buy online? There's always this thing that, if there is a claim, I'll be calling a call center and I don't know whether they will help me. मैंने अपने, दोस्त से खरीद लिया, वो agent है, and things like that. So we realize that while, online is able to provide a tremendous amount of scale, there is a certain credibility gap which exists with customers who are coming into the category for the first time. And they probably need some handholding. And that's where we have actually now gone the hybrid route in terms of adding both stores as well as feet on street agents. So we now have about 30 stores across the country. We have more than about 500 agents which are there, who are in different parts of the country. It's still mostly most of our sales is still driven by the online system, but more and more some of the customers require a follow-up visit to close the sale. So today what happens in many of our cases, almost about 15-20% of our sales today is coming in via the offline route, where the customer first speaks to somebody at the call center, and after a few conversations wants to be visited at home. And that lead is then passed to somebody in the particular city or town in which the customer is, and a visit is done. So that's happening as well. The second thing is that as a brand, we were largely a Hindi belt kind of brand. Yeah. And it's only in the last 1 year that we've kind of explored both in South India. So for the first time, we've had campaigns in Tamil and Telugu with local film stars as well. We had Jiva in a Tamil campaign that has been extremely successful. And are also now we have Kannada speakers, we have Malayalam speakers, etc. So we are driving regional marketing now to try and drive penetration in these markets. And South India is a large insurance market. It is more customers are more educated, customers more prosperous to that extent. So it's a great opportunity for us as far as driving future growth is concerned. And that's why we've gone in with a strategy which is to have offline presence as well as back it up with local advertising, regional advertising, have language speakers, have both on the sales as well as the service side. And the idea is to drive penetration beyond urban as well, because like we said in the beginning, penetration in this country is only 3.7%. It's only going to grow. And we've seen early success on this. So that's the direction, I think, of future growth as well for Policy Bazaar in that sense.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have a question from our audience.
Sure.
Pratik Mehta has a question that how has AI and automation impacted the insurance industry?
Awesome question, yeah. So very interesting, because I think, that's what I briefly spoke about that. It's a very interesting category. When you look at insurance, it's one of the few categories in which a customer pays and then the provider, that is the insurance company, decides whether you should get the insurance or not. Everywhere else you pay, you get it, you go. There's no question of the seller telling you that, okay, I'm not going to sell it to you. But in the case of insurance, they ask for a number of documents, you have medical tests to be done, etc., right? Before they decide that this is okay, the risk cover, the premium is okay, and I'm not going to cover your life because you're unhealthy or whatever, in that. Now, when you look at the online space, what happens is that I talk to you, or you come to the website and you make a purchase. But then after you've made the purchase, you now need to provide documentation which identifies you. You need to provide salary documentation to say that, I earn a certain amount and therefore I can, I should be given a certain level of risk cover. These are my medical, I need to go for a medical test. So it's a fairly complex process post-purchase. Yeah. And that is where technology now is kicking in terms of making this process far more seamless. We are working on various areas as far as, on the technology side is concerned with our insurance partners, as well as separately on our own as well, to make sure that this entire process can be done seamlessly. Your appointment can be set up at the medical center. You can upload the documents. You can put a video to show that, so you provide your documents and you put up a video, a small video, and, we do recognition technology to tell us that this is the individual. So, insurance is another area where there's a lot of fraud also, where, people take policies on people who have already passed away and then make a claim for it and so on. So you have to make sure that the person is alive, right? So you put a video up, and I need to match that video to say, yes, this is that same guy in the Aadhaar card, right? So that's where, you can use a lot of recognition technology, which is there, which we are working on. Beyond that, we are also doing a lot of work in terms of, at the call center, a lot in terms of sentiment analysis based on the calling and intent analysis. So based on the conversation that you have, I'm able to understand whether this customer is a high intent customer, a low intent customer, or the sentiment is going negative, and therefore retrain my agent in terms of what he needs to say or what he or she needs to say to drive this. We've also gone and, this year, actually the pandemic was, while it was awful on many counts, I think it moved organizations rapidly up the technology curve as well. And a lot of things which were not okay in the past were considered to be fine. I mean, when we earlier spoken about, doing video calls, for example, with customers, and customers were very, not comfortable with this whole process of a video call. But today, almost 25% of our bookings come from a video call. Customers want to do a video call. We've all got comfortable with this kind of thing where, we're all sitting in our own places and talking to people. So all of that from a work from home situation was driven through technology within 1 week of the pandemic happening and things like that. So our goal actually now is to provide a seamless end-to-end customer journey. So you can come, you can buy, you can upload your documents, you can put up a video. That video will get checked automatically, and your medical reports, again, the same thing happens as far as the medical is concerned. Your medical reports are uploaded. They all go directly to the insurer. The approvals come from the insurer directly online, and your policy is issued online. All of this piece was, broken in many parts. It's still broken. It's not that we fixed everything. There are 50 insurers, so you have to work with, each one of them individually. But I think there is a lot of work which is happening in this whole area. And in the area of intent, that's another very fascinating thing. So we get a whole lot of leads, or people want to be spoken to, and these conversations go, it takes a few days to close a sale. Now, it's very important to understand where that conversation is going. So by using technology on the voice to text side and applying AI on it to understand where this customer is based on all the millions of calls that we've already got, it tells us which agent to actually pass this particular lead to so that the likelihood of success is highest. So it's been, I think lots of change has happened in the last couple of years as far as this piece is concerned.
Just a small follow-up question on this.
Yeah.
Specifically speaking about the auto sector claims section, in which so there also many a times we have faced that the dealers and the auto workshop guys, they usually charge for both from the customer as well and the insurance guys as well, and so by posting some of the spare parts which are actually previously have been broken or something like that, and then claiming that there's actually been destroyed or damaged in an accident. So I'm not sure if you must be aware of these things. So has AI or any of these things been used to address such issues?
Yeah, see, again, now claims is another massive piece in this whole insurance pie. So we are trying to address claims through a couple of things. One is that we are trying to also tie up with a set of garages across the country, so that if you bought a policy with us, you can go to these particular garages and you can then be assured of getting a cashless claim done. At the same time, because these garages are on our have been validated by us, we are sure that there's no fraud going on at these places, which also helps the insurance company because it reduces their costs and their losses. See, a very critical part of, and it's actually, when you spoke about the fact that, or you spoke about insurance aggregators being a problem, we work very closely with insurance companies actually to reduce their losses as far as fraud is concerned, or with using technology. So even in the case of claims, for example, or in the case of issuing a policy, so many people allow their policy to lapse and then they want another policy. Now, when that happens, you have to submit a video of the car. Yeah. Now that is all done through the app. You can, and there is a auto approval that happens So you're able to move really quickly through the process because of the fact that we have access to millions of videos of these kind of videos. We are able to understand what is a policy, where a policy should be issued, or where should a manual survey actually be done, which helps the insurance companies. That in turn helps us get better pricing from the insurance companies. So that's why there's a lot of work on the technology side, which we do to try to reduce insurance company losses, because at the end of the day, that's what will benefit us from a pricing point of view.
Thank you, sir. So actually, there is this audience question on the similar lines of the pandemic, which says, would the acceptance of technology-aided services and solutions growth be the same without this pandemic? And if not, where would we be?
Yeah, no, I definitely think that, the pandemic accelerated a number of things. A number of things were not accepted as industry practices. I don't know, all of you remember, they'll send you forms, you have to fill a form, attach it, this thing, attest it, and send it back and so on. And all of that became okay to just sign, scan, send. Suddenly a scanned form was okay, which earlier you needed a physical form to be done and couriered across and so on. So, starting from there to a whole lot of things were okay suddenly, because people and companies realized that, you couldn't do business otherwise. And I think that definitely technology in, the acceptance of technology as a solution in some of these processes has been accelerated by the pandemic. There's no doubt about it. Things that were not accepted by the insurance companies, etc., today they are happy to say, okay, this is fine, let's go.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have a question from our one of our colleagues, Dr. Yash. So he has a suggestion that why don't insurance companies tie up with the healthcare sector for a consumer-centric product? He would like you to comment on that.
So I think that there's absolutely agree with you. I think there are tremendous overlaps in the space. There is a lot of work actually that the insurance companies are doing with, for example, wearables and things like that. Yeah. There's a lot of work which they're doing in terms of saying that, basically coming to the thing that if you lead a healthier lifestyle and I have access to that data, I will give you better, rates on premiums and things like that. Yeah. And a number of them are working now, with their customers to encourage customers to take on some of these things, because that gives them a lot more data about the customer, about the lifestyle of the customer, and enable them to provide far more accessible, risk covers and things like that. As far as we are concerned, we are working. We just in fact acquired a company called Visit Health, which works in the employee health space, which is all about wellness and provides. So we've got into the corporate insurance space. Now in the corporate insurance space, employees health benefits and getting employees to live better lives or healthier lives becomes a key part for a corporate as well. And as an insurance provider or their insurance broker, we also bring to the table a whole host of benefits for their employees, which are wellness and health benefits, doctors, consultations, wellness videos, all kinds of different things, activities and so on, which is basically moving employees towards a better and healthier lifestyle.
So we have another question from Rahul, which asks, the strategy at the initial stage for a startup, should it be more centric towards customer base or average token size? And what would be the key features for a startup which caters in the hybrid market, both offline and online?
No, so the question is a little open-ended in the sense that it's very, very broad. But I mean, you think about it, obviously ticket size does not matter as much. It is to be at the end of the day, you have to fulfill a customer's need. There has to be a problem that you're solving. I think that's critical. If you are solving that problem and you're able to see traction, you should be able to see traction if you're doing a good job of solving it. If you are seeing that traction, that should encourage you to move forward down that idea. If it doesn't, then you aren't fulfilling a need, or you're not getting it right. What is the second part to that?
Says, sorry, sir.
Yeah.
And what would be the key features for a startup which caters in a hybrid market, offline and online?
So again, I mean, I think online, offline as a combination, as a startup getting out of the door, I would say, if you look at many of the startups that have got to a hybrid model, and many startups have, most of them have started online, seen traction there, and then said that, listen, we can add an offline component to it, which will help in furthering penetration or furthering, conversion and so on. If you look at Lenskart, if you look at Nykaa, you look at a number of players. I mean, we've done the same ourselves. I mean, we spent 12 years online, and then it's only in the 13th year that we've gone out and put out, 30 stores on the ground. So I think that if you're a startup in the online space, I would say, get your online model right. Ensure that there is a customer need or a consumer need that is large enough and that you are fulfilling before saying that I need to have an offline presence, because an offline presence brings a lot of complexity into the entire process. Suddenly you have various people at various parts of the country, and you're trying to manage them and so on, which becomes highly complex. So I would say start online and then take it from there.
So my next question is, I don't know if such a product exists in the portfolio of Policy Bazaar. So today it's about Ingenium. It's a startup conclave. So since morning we have been listening about entrepreneurship and all.
Yeah.
So to boost, and the most feared thought of any entrepreneur is, if I fail, then mera paisa to gaya. So for something like that, do you have any insurance products in Policy Bazaar or any other insurance company as well?
So I think, if you look at it, the pain and the reward of entrepreneurship is exactly this. Yeah. And it's interesting, because if you actually, as an entrepreneur, if you went to an investor, whether it be, angel, seed, etc., they're all very keen to understand what is your skin in the game. Yeah. Because unless you have skin in the game, the confidence that you're going to give it all is just not there. So somewhere, I don't think you can have entrepreneurship without risk. Yeah. Insurance product to cover that, I think a highly interesting idea, but considering the extremely low success rate of entrepreneurship, and also the fact that I don't know if there is anyone who knows that a particular startup is going to make it or not. Even if you look at, the top VCs and the top PEs, etc., they fail 99% of the time. They're wrong. They go in and invest in 100, and, 1 or 2 make it. But those 1 or 2 cover up for all the rest of the 100. Yeah. In this case, as an insurance, if I had to, let's say I was launching an insurance product, and I had 100 entrepreneurs who came into my portfolio, unfortunately, I would have to make the premium such that one success would have to set off a 99 losses out there. And that would be the challenge. But it's an interesting idea. Yeah.
So I think there's another question which is quite interesting from one of the people. So what are the changes that we have seen within Policy Bazaar post-listing? So in terms of policies, responsibilities, customer acquisition, also stock prices, considering the decision-making, etc.
So actually, we haven't. I've been through a couple of companies where we've kind of listed and been pre and post and so on. I honestly haven't seen too much of a change out here. Yeah, I think everybody recognizes that the price of the share. And I mean, all of you probably know that, the share started out, it went up like 30-40% from listing. Now it's 30-40% below the listing and so on. So I think people recognize that, this is the vagaries of the stock market and everything. So, you got to keep your focus on work and got to focus on, getting things right. Because if you get things right, the stock price will take care of itself. As far as the acquisition piece is concerned, definitely being listed gives us a lot more opportunities as far as acquisitions are concerned, both from the point of view of having a lot of money in the bank, as well as liquidity as well for, your stock is liquid, so you can use your stock to acquire companies and so on. So definitely, that's something that we're actively engaged with a large number of startups, largely down the chain in terms of, and mostly fixed in terms of fixing that end-to-end customer journey, right down to the claims process. So that's an area where definitely I think that the listing and everything gives us a bit of leverage on that side. But otherwise, life doesn't change too much. Yeah, it's okay.
So we have another question from Mr. Pratik Mehta. So you have already touched upon it in your previous lines itself, but he wants to ask that why don't many customers still buy insurance? What are the pain points? As India is a highly underinsured country.
Yeah. So actually, this is really interesting. So I'll tell you, there are 3-4 reasons why people don't buy. Yeah. First is there's one Superman or Superwoman syndrome, which is to say that nothing will happen to me. Yeah. I'm fit. I exercise. I eat healthy. Nothing is going to happen to me. Or I'm young and nothing's going to happen to me. So that's one category of people. Yeah. And we address each one of these segments in our advertising actually. So we had a campaign which was about Life Ka U-turn recently, which is about exactly this, that you never know what's around the corner kind of thing. That specifically goes to the people who think that, nothing is going to happen to them. Then there is a guy who's a procrastinator. Yeah. See, the thing with insurance is unlike any other category or product, you buy the product, you get nothing. You get one piece of paper that is a promise to be paid out sometime in the future. Now, think about it. If I'm running my house, I'm a guy who earns like maybe, something like what, 15,000 bucks a month or 25,000 bucks a month. There are a lot of other pressing expenses that are there in my family. Yeah. My kids want to go out, they want something to buy something. Instead of that, I've got to pay a 500 rupee premium. It's very easy to say, acha bhai, agle mahine kar lete hain. That's the other one. Because anyway, kya ho raha hai? Theek hai, I'm all fine and all that. So that's the other thing which is there. Plus, another one is that, in this country, if you look at the history of insurance has been sold largely as a tax saving device. I remember I joined, from campus, I joined Asian Paints and I landed up in the Calcutta office. And as soon as my first salary came, there was a LIC agent was sitting there waiting for me. Yeah. Instantly he got me signed into some policy or the other, which is already dead and left in Calcutta only when I moved to the next place. Yeah. But it was sold as a tax saving device rather than as a risk cover. Yeah. So if you look at a lot of the money back products, endowment policies which are there, which a lot of people take, they provide a certain return of the money that is paid over a number of years with a certain level of interest. But the insurance cover that they give is extremely low. Now, the product that our Indian middle class needs is a term insurance product, which unfortunately, if you survive the term, you do not get any money back. So it's a small amount of money that you pay as a premium to cover your family with a large risk cover. Though people do not understand that you're buying insurance as a risk cover and not as a savings product. So they think कितना पैसा वापस मिलेगा मुझे, वो कुछ नहीं मिलने वाला आपको. So that becomes another, point where they say कि भाई there's no point in buying it. So there are a number of things. Then there's complexity. It is a complex product. It's not so simple. People have a lot of doubt. Their fine print or कुछ भी लिख देंगे जब claim आएगा 20 साल बाद तो मतलब मैं कहाँ हूँ, मतलब किसको मिलेगा, etc. All of those kind of things. Which is why this whole offline thing. A lot of people buy from offline agents because they feel that at least my family knows him. He will ensure that the claim is paid and so on. So so number of factors like this which today hold up penetration.
So I understand we're kind of reaching our time limit, but we wouldn't leave any esteemed alum go without giving us some advice to the students who are just getting started on their careers. So what would be your advice?
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to give too much of gyan actually, but I'll say one thing that, when I passed out some 30 years back or whatever it was, I know a lot of people, a lot of my, batchmates, etc., have done one job for 30 years. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, they've become senior people all over the place, but they've been, brand marketing. So, wo CMO, global CMO bana hua hai. I don't think that you guys will be able to just survive on the basis of one skill. It's a very changing, evolving, fast evolving world. And I feel that you will constantly have to adapt yourself, reskill yourself, keep learning. Probably every 10 years, metamorphosize yourself into some other avatar to keep yourself relevant for the corporate world and crack it. So one is, therefore, the advice, very important, is that you have to be able to embrace change. You have to feel comfortable with an unstructured, uncertain, volatile, complex environment. This whole VUCA business, you have to be totally comfortable with that scene. Have a strong bias for action. Don't get caught up with sara din data paralysis, analysis karte raho. Yes, there is a place for data and everything else, but there is definitely a lot to be said for action. And finally, I think that, finally, I have a lot to say, but anyway, communicating well is a highly important skill if you want to rise in your corporate careers. Yeah. So please invest time, effort, and develop yourself on it. Don't believe कि यार मैं नहीं कर सकता वो तो, when you see some people stand up comfortably and talk आराम से, you say, yaar, I wish I could do that. The fact is, it is a challenge for everybody. Embrace that challenge, push yourself, get out there, practice as much as you can, but you have to be able to communicate well. Standing up, communicating with a forum of people and with a small bunch of people and, inspiring them, leading them, because you can't do everything. You have to have a bunch of people. Lastly, be humble and, there's no reason to be arrogant ever in life. There's always somebody smarter than you. So be humble and have fun. Yeah, it's enjoy yourself, enjoy the journey. That's very, very important. So that's it. Thank you so much.
Humbleness and ethics will always be a part of XLRI culture, sir. I now call upon Ankita to.
I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you, sir. I now call upon Ankita to deliver the vote of thanks.
So it was an honor to host you, sir, here today. And I think the journey you shared and the insights you gave is going to help us in a long run. Also, since you mentioned we would love to have you as a guest lecturer for the Shakti case. So it would be really an honor to have you here with that. Thank you, sir.
Definitely. I just wish this session was in person. Hopefully that will happen sometime. Pleasure talking to all of you and all the very best. Yeah. Thank you.
The next session would be hosted by Vineet and Mona Lisa, and it will start at 6. Thank you.
At XLRI, we focus on a management education framework that is integrative and offers students an opportunity to develop and pursue new ideas at the same time. We constantly evolve our curriculum in line with changing economic and social landscapes. Besides the flagship programs, XLRI has added many new executive and certificate programs over the years to meet the growing demand of various industry sectors. Our virtual interactive learning program and entrepreneurship programs are our two key offerings.
Learning at XLRI is different from the way learning happens elsewhere. One reason is because of the use of cases. We use cases to relate academic concepts with industry application.
Two dimensions that I would talk about: sustainability of our leadership, our journey in our leadership, sustainability of our careers is dependent on ethics and how we live a high ethics, high integrity life. Back in the days, before any of the other institutes started doing it, we had business ethics as a compulsory course. For me, that consonance of my own ethical framework with the institute and now my own ethical framework with my company, that served me immensely. So today when I stand and talk about ethics, it comes from this core of me. And Excel helped frame this and helped give it shape even before I knew what this was all about. And now it's who I am. It's the core of who I am.
Gave me confidence, Excel gave me purpose, and Excel gave me a lot of confidence to try different things. That's a huge set of experiences I had. And that stood me in good stead because I went to become a management trainee in Hindustan Lever, where I could never have been without the Excel ticket, and without having excelled in Excel, I wouldn't have made it to HUL. And I've been with Unilever all 25 years of my career, so clearly the move from Excel to HUL was great for me. I really think that Excel has grown from strength to strength. It's maintained its reputation. There are a number of students who continue to excel year after year and have created a community of very successful professionals in India.
I've gone on to sell disposable diapers to Indians who don't even throw away the wrappers, forget about throwing expensive diapers, selling pizzas to Italians, and now of course selling shoes back in India. Excel is what's taught me the marketing, the consumer insight, all of that. Completely the credit goes to Excel.
Associated with it from 1983 to 85, and it has helped me think about the society a lot more every day of my work and every day of my life.
Excel gave me the experience for 2 years in a community living, and I benefited a lot. I made some of my best friends there. Secondly, it instilled in me the values that XLRI stands for, but above all, integrity. And finally, it gave me the aspiration and ambition, together with the determination that has probably helped me get where I am today. Besides, I have to say that the 2 years in Excel were great fun. All the time we were in Excel, we wanted to graduate and get away. And ever since, we've wanted to reminiscence about the 2 years there. It is a great experience. Fly Excel, fly.
Vivek, good evening.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening.
So we'll start. Good evening, everyone. We are Mona Lisa and Vinny, your host and co-host for this fireside chat with Mr. Vivek Sinha, COO, Unacademy. Mr. Vivek Sinha is the Chief Operating Officer of Unacademy, India's largest learning platform. He leads the business verticals of test preparation, India Business, K-12, and careers. Additionally, he is also responsible for central capability functions such as inside sales, business development, business operations, content and academics, and user growth. Mr. Vivek joined Unacademy in September 2020 as the Senior Vice President of the test preparation business. In a short span of time, his work has made a deep impact on driving growth, learner engagement, and customer experience for Unacademy. Vivek has held leadership positions in companies across consumer internet, fintech, and real estate. He holds an MBA from the Indian School of Business and has over a decade of cumulative work experience. In his stint as an entrepreneur, Vivek co-founded Bilzar, India's first construction tech startup. Prior to joining Unacademy, Vivek served in a leadership position at MobiKwik and Oyo. We welcome you, Mr. Vivek.
Thank you, Mona Lisa. Thank you, Vinny. Thank you, everyone, for having me here.
So Vivek, if you are good to go, can we get on to our virtual fireside discussion right away?
Sure, look forward to it.
Yeah, meanwhile, I also request audience to keep posting questions on the chats and we'll take up the questions during the discussion. So Vivek, I also come from a construction backgrounds and you also worked with Loda Group, then you started Bilzar, which was one of the first Indian tech startup in the construction domain, as Mona mentioned. So I just wondered about three things particularly. How did you get the idea from? What challenges did you face while at it then? And more interestingly, how do you see this domain now? How has it evolved ever since?
Sure. So see, most of the best ideas that comes to entrepreneur is usually through their own experience, right? And mine was not any different. When I got the idea of Bilzar, I had already spent about 5-6 years in the construction domain. And that was the time when my father was building his own house, or let's say, in fact, renovating his house. And he faced a lot of challenge. He was taken for a ride by the contractors. And I started thinking, if somebody like me who already has a background in the industry, who has connections, who has the know-how, if somebody like me or my family can be taken for a ride, what would happen to a normal consumer who doesn't understand, let's say, the intricacies of what architecture is or what construction is? The other striking realization was that if you order a 200 rupee pizza on Swiggy today, there is a customer support, there is a, if the transaction goes bad or if your experience goes bad, there are tons of things that you can do, right? There's a platform which is ready to listen to you, probably refund the money, get your food delivered from some other restaurant. All that for a 200 rupee transaction. And here somebody is spending tens of lakhs of rupees. And honestly, there was not even one single professional brick and mortar organization, forget about a platform or a tech startup. So yeah, that is where the idea came from. And then it was a long journey. Your second question was about how has the industry evolved. So when I was doing that startup, naturally, since then, in the last 7 or 8 years, a lot has changed. Demonetization has helped that sector a lot. One of the biggest problems that I faced when I was running my tech startup was most of us, I mean, if you speak to your parents, your uncles and your aunts, let's say people who are not a part of the organized service sector, there's a lot of black money that goes into construction, right? A lot of unaccounted cash that goes into construction, and black money, only corrupt people, the common perception is that only corrupt people and politicians have black money. That's not the case. If your uncle is a small trader or a shop owner, is not paying taxes on his income from that shop, that's also black money, right? So where are people going to spend it? Buying a house or renovating a house is one of the lifetime's biggest transaction, biggest ticket size transaction. So a lot of people used to park their cash in renovating their homes, and such people did not used to come to me. Even my services were top notch or my rates were unbeatable, because as a venture funded company, all transactions on Buildzar was recorded. So that was the first problem. Now people who are solving the same problem, for them it's a big support that the demonetization worked wonder. Unfortunately, I closed my setup before that. The second force enabler for that sector was GST. When I was doing my own startup, the taxation regime was very, very unfavorable and very complicated. There was a sales tax, there was a service tax, there was a work contract tax, there was octroi. So movement of goods from one state to other state was very, very difficult. And typically, so let's say if you buy a phone, mobile phone on Flipkart today, most probably it will be shipped from Bangalore or from any other city where the seller can supply you at the lowest possible cost. But that was not possible in case of bulk material like construction material, because interstate goods movement attracted a lot of tax as well as municipal level taxes as well. Now all that has gone. All that has been streamlined because of GST. Third is because of the logistics sector has also come a long way in the last 7-8 years. Movement of bulk material has also been streamlined. So at times I think that probably we were ahead of the curve. At times being 7 or 8 years ahead of the curves is also let's say painful. Now in the same space, some very good startup has emerged. There's a company called Infra.Market, which has already crossed unicorn valuation, working on very similar idea, very similar space. So yeah, the sector has naturally evolved a lot after that. So my realization, and that's an insight for all aspiring entrepreneur over here. The timing of the idea is also very, very important. Just having a great idea and great team and a great product may not always yield the desired result. At times, macro factors become so dominating that they solely determine the outcome or they determine the results. But yeah, I became an entrepreneur in 2014 when being an entrepreneur was not as fashionable as it is today. But yeah, if somebody has to start out, I think there could not be a better year than 2022.
So Vivek, just wanted also to know that what are the challenges you faced while doing your startup, scaling it up, and then finally you had to close it back. So specifically, what challenges did you face?
So I'm assuming this question is coming from some of the budding entrepreneurs in the course. So see, an entrepreneur's journey is going to be full of challenges. I mean, there would be a very, very long list of challenges that I face if I have to think. But it started from the fact that on day one, nobody believed in my idea. Not even my best friends, family, nobody believed that what I was trying to do was even meaningful. Then it boils down to nobody wanting to work for you, right? Because who wants to work for a non-funded startup where you can't pay them market compensation? Landlords don't want to give offices to you because you don't have that much rent to pay. Naturally, after funding, things change, but the first few months are very, very painful. At times, even you get pangs. You start doubting or questioning yourself. So yeah, there are multiple challenges. And then even if you, let's say, raise money, even if you put together a great team, the challenges don't stop. You build an MVP, you go to the market, you test your product, you take consumer feedback. The first 5 or 6 iterations may not work. You pivot from one idea to the other idea. So overall, it's going to be full of challenges. If some of you want to be an aspiring entrepreneur, it has become easier to raise money these days, but nothing can actually, let's say there's no substitute for the grind, and there's no substitute for hard work if you're an entrepreneur. So it's going to be full of challenges, but at the same time, it was exciting and fun.
So Vivek, you moved from Reliance to Lodha, and then you founded Buildzar, and then again you moved to MobiKwik and Oyo, and now you are a part of an academy. So there has been a lot of pivots in your career journey. And so what encouraged the journey from a construction startup to an edtech startup? If you could share a few learnings for our audience here.
See, I'll be very honest with you. The first career move was not a planned move. So I did my when I sat for the placement, Reliance came to a placement that year, and Reliance was the highest paying employer. So I had 3 offers, and I naturally chose the offer which paid me the highest amount of money. So uh, because I had very limited understanding of what I wanted to do, honestly. So Reliance was just because of the 3 offers that I had. That was the not to say that the stint was not fruitful. I learned a lot. I was fortunate enough to be given very, very good projects, fortunate enough to have worked with some of the best people in the trade. But it wasn't a planned career move per se. I think students both in engineering as well as MBA colleges these days are much more poised, and they have a lot more clarity of thought in their heads than, let's say, I ever had or we ever had when we were studying. But yeah, since I went for an executive MBA, by that time I had already realized where I wanted to be. Lodha, I would say, was a conscious decision, purely because of there were two lenses with which I looked at that decision. First was it was a very relatively small sized company when I went there. I remember the company operated from the basement of a building called Lodha XLS. Very small stage company, but full of very high quality talent. I saw a lot of promise, and that decision turned out to be well because in the 3 years that I worked with Lodha, the company grew by leaps and bounds. So if you're a part of an organization that is growing at a very, very rapid pace, you also grow along with the organization. So for me, choosing Lodha was purely a function of who the people were and how fast the company was growing, how fast things were moving. I could have gone to a relatively stable company or MNC or let's say a better brand name, but I chose Lodha because of these two factors. Construction startup or construction e-commerce company, I always wanted to start out. Like I said, I got this idea because of my own experience. I found a person who was a great person as a co-founder, probably one of the most capable people I had met. And fortunately, my experience of working with Lodha and Reliance, both of which were in the construction and the infra sector, gave me a lot of confidence that I was the best person in the country to solve this problem. So yeah, that was about it. But I never thought, or even today, I never think myself as a fintech person or a edtech person or as a construction industry person. So the way I look at my current stint or previous stint is I have been in technology or I have been a generalist. Whether be it solving problems related to how to give the best hospitality experience, or be it problems related to how to give the best payment experience at an offline shop, or be it solving a problem related to how to give the best learning experience to students. I think what it requires is first principles approach, a lot of ambition, a lot of energy, a lot of hard work. And I think those skill set are transferable across industries, across functions, across geographies. So yeah, I don't see myself as a X industry professional or Y industry professional. And my strong advice to everyone in the panel, all aspiring students, is to actually do not get branded as this industry professional or that industry professional. I think, especially if you aspire to work, either build a startup or to work for a startup, think of yourself as a person, as a generalist who is good at solving problems, who is good at bringing scale, who is good at launching 0 to 1 projects, and then scale once you have proven the concept, then scaling it from 1 to 100. That is what my capability is. And if you want to take a bet on tech and startups, that is how you should think about yourself. Don't get branded as either a channel sales guy or offline sales guy or a marketing guy or a X sector guy or a Y sector guy. I think that would just bring in a lot of constraints about the kind of switches that you can make, or about the kind of offers that will come along your way, or about the kind of things that you can do. I think that's probably one thing that I have done well in my career is I've never allowed those artificial constraints to restrict me from taking up any opportunity that I have liked.
I totally agree on you on this, Vivek. So let's talk about an academy now. So we can all agree that an academy has reached such new heights that hardly anybody needs an introduction about it. But if you could still briefly talk about it, your journey so far with an academy, your role in the success of, let's say, test prep or K-12, etc.
So I think a lot of people know this, but a lot of you may know this, but I'll take you through the evolution of an academy. So it used to be a YouTube channel initially. So Gaurav Manjal, the founder and CEO of an academy, used to run this YouTube channel where he used to upload videos about coding and programming, and those videos used to get a lot of likes. But that is not when Gaurav, and by the way, that channel was called an academy, but that is not when Gaurav actually started an academy as a company. He went on to do something else in real estates. Again, it was a company called flatchat.org. But when Gaurav sold that setup, he again came back to the idea of actually building an academy, and he partnered with his friend Roman Sani, who resigned from his position as an IS officer to build an academy. So, of course, both were very highly passionate about changing the way education was delivered. Both were very passionate about creating a dent in the market, and that passion still remains, that still reflects in whatever we do here at an academy. So we have also pivoted a lot of times, and because that's a constant process from in any startup. We are very fast, we are very agile, we have zero sunk cost bias, which means we have written off many projects or many ideas that once we thought were great ideas or very projects with very high potential. But that's about who we are. Today, we are present across 5 or 6 segments of EdTech. So we're present in the schools, tuitions market. We are present in the test preparation, basically the market where we help students in cracking various competitive examination. Then we are present in the jobs and skilling space. We are present in the creator economy space through our group company called Graphy. We also have a thriving US business now. We also have a marketplace business. So the group has about 7 companies now. All the commonality between all these 7 companies is that we are very highly product led. We remain in businesses, or we build products which are ops light, which are asset light, and which are highly scalable. We are very obsessed about the experience that we are trying to deliver to our learners. We are very careful and very obsessed about our brand. Naturally, if we are running operations at such a huge and complex scales, there are mistakes and there are gaps. But yeah, the intent is to clearly build a world-class company out of India. Another notable trait of an academy is that if you visit our office and if you meet the key people who are building this organization, probably it is the best accumulation of talent across technology companies in India. Not just technology, I would even put some of the traditional, let's say, blue chip companies. If you look at that kind of talent that we have built, I think there would be very few companies who can beat us. Because eventually great people create great businesses or great products, right? So yeah, that is who we are. Today, the organization is about 6,000 people strong. We have an office practically only in Bangalore, so very asset light operation. Most of our workforce work out of remote locations. Again, that's possible because we do not have a traditional mindset wherein we build a very ops heavy or very physical presence heavy business. It's completely product led. So yeah, these are some of the ethos which drive us. Naturally, it is big and complex these days.
So we would love to hear about your journey as well in the academy. What about your role and now what you are looking forward to?
So I am the operator, so which means Gaurav, the key people who report to Gaurav. So basically, there's a there's a peer who heads brand, there's a peer who heads technology and product, and then I am the operator. So sales, marketing, revenue, product launches, team building, that is all that I do. Customer support, educator support, all these functions roll into me across various businesses. There is, like I said, the schools tuition business or the competitive exams business or the jobs and skills business in the on the engineering side, and the fourth is the platform business and the US businesses. So across all these businesses, sales, marketing, business development, operations, customer support, partner support, all these functions roll into me. The tech product and marketing rolls into a peer called Himesh. The brand reports to a peer called Karan. So that is what I do. In terms of my journey, when I joined an academy, I picked up a very small piece, even though I had done much bigger roles at OYO. But when I joined here, I thought I'll first pick up a small category and then prove what I can deliver. So my journey also started. I had a much humbler beginning at an academy. I did not have such a vast expanse to begin with. But the good part is I kept on delivering, and in every month and in every quarter, my role grew here. And that's the whole idea of actually joining a startup. It's completely meritocratic. There's no concept of a batch parity. So some of my seniors are also working for me and whatever. It's completely meritocratic. Nobody is going to tell you that you can't be the CXO because you're not 40 years old. Nobody is going to tell you that that sales can't report to you because you have never done sales in your life. So it's completely meritocratic. If you deliver, you grow. So yeah, naturally, I have also grown a lot in the last 1.5 years. I have learned a lot. Thankfully, have been able to build a very, very good team, which works for me. Some of the best people in the trade. Yeah, that has been my journey.
So, Vivek, you spoke about how at an academy you are obsessed with providing a good customer experience. So, we can agree that EdTech is a huge responsibility because parents and students, they are more concerned about the service since it is linked to the child's future. So, what are the risks that you see in this space, and how do you mitigate those risks?
See, there are two kind of risks. One risk or one challenge is related to outcomes, and the other risk is naturally related to, let's say, compliance. I'll talk about both. So one risk is that no matter how great a curriculum we build, no matter how good teachers we hire, or no matter how good products we build, it's still difficult for online only products to mimic the discipline that comes in an offline coaching center, or let's say in offline tuitions, because there, if let's say 50 students are sitting in a class and then a teacher is teaching, there is naturally an element of discipline over there. Now we may try and mimic it, but the issue is that online is still, it works really well for people who are themselves very motivated, the students who are themselves motivated. If somebody is not motivated, online education will not deliver the same results as offline, right? So that's one of the biggest challenge that we're trying to solve. So say, for example, we can bring in elements of discipline rather than giving you recorded lectures using which you can prepare for CAT. We can say that there will be online live cohort based courses wherein you will study with 50 of your peers. There will be tests, etc. I can do tons of things to mimic that experience, but still online experience is not exactly close to what the offline experience is. That is the biggest risk that we see. We have also seen this, we run about 60 categories in the company. So for undergraduate courses, that's a risk. For postgraduate courses, we have seen that because the learners are already mature. So say, for example, we have seen that the discipline is much higher for people who buy CAT courses or UPSC courses from us, because there the average age of the learner would be probably 24 or 25 years. They are mature, they are very, very motivated and driven about their career. Whereas the discipline element in the IIT JEE or the medical entrance exam is quite lower, or in K12 it is even more lower, because there you actually have to make your child sit to study, right? So that is how it works. So that's one risk. The other risk is there are more than 3,000 live classes going every single day, right? And in a live class environment, while we use both technology as well as invigilation to make sure that the classroom experience is sacrosanct, but still the biggest risk is that anything can go wrong in a live class. There could be a learner could make a comment which the learner should not have made. The teacher could make a comment which the teacher should not have made. Although we take a lot of steps to avoid any kind of compliance issues. So for example, learner profile is not visible to other learner profile is not visible to teachers, phone numbers cannot be shared, so on and so forth. There are strict guidelines for teacher to not make any say, for example, any political comment, any indecent comment, any comment which would outrage, let's say, anything. But yeah, that's a risk. We are working hard towards, and so far we have been very successful in ensuring that no such thing happened. But yeah, that's a risk that we face. But then that's the nature of the beast. You can't avoid it. Uber faces that risk every time you take a ride. Oyo faces that risk every time you book a hotel room. Yeah, that's the nature of the beast.
So Vivek, let's talk about the current scenario. Things are getting back to normal. A lot of things are getting back offline. It is now what we call the hybrid model. So how do you see this model, and how does an academy ensures that learners don't miss out on the learning imparted through the physical settings?
So a lot of people are trying out this hybrid model of education. We are also opening our own center of excellence, which are basically physical centers. And yes, it does have a lot of value, but then it also comes with the challenges of scale. So say, for example, how many centers can I open? 30, 40, 50, 100, right? But 80% of my learners come from tier 3 cities, not even tier 2. So let's say somebody buying my subscription from Dhanbad, probably I won't go and open a center in Dhanbad, right? Or even Dhanbad is still a district. Probably some of my learners come from villages, right? And we are in the business of giving them the access to the best teachers. So why an academy works is because if you are an IIT JEE aspirant, staying in a village, you can actually study from the best teachers in Kota. So that is why it works. Once you try mimic, or let's say once you try going hybrid, that will be relevant for a segment of learners who are staying in tier, let's say metros or tier 1 or tier 2 cities. But I have a lot of faith on the online model, because I am able to touch many more lives through the online model compared to an offline model. I think the reason of going offline is it's more business reason. It's a very high ticket size model, right? Basically you charge the learner for real estate. If I give you the same courses purely online, I charge you X rupees. In hybrid model, I basically put a TV in a classroom and I ask you to come to a classroom and watch the same courses, and I charge you 5X rupees. So it's a good business to be in. But and naturally, when we do it, we are not going to do it in a dumb way. We are going to do it in a much more smarter and intelligent way compared to some of our peers, and that is why we haven't launched our own hybrid till now. But but whenever we do it, we are going to do it in a much smarter way, intelligent way, in a manner that actually works for our learners. But still, the writing is clear on the wall. Education, or especially let's say test prep, has to move online. Whether it happens in 2022 or whether it happens in 2025 or 2020. So I would like to take a bet on what the future is rather than what the past was. So yeah, that is my honest view about it.
Basically, it's like the online platform will bring in more inclusivity in terms of giving access to all kinds of people, not just people from specific cities, right?
Yeah, of course. Everyone, even staying in rural areas or villages, they have devices, right? So an academy, the best part about an academy is that I'm not in the business of selling a tablet to you. So we are a pure online app company, right? So my courses are available on my app, which runs even on a 7,000, 8,000 rupee smartphone. And Jio and all the other telecom players, they have made internet available, and even in the remotest corners of the country. So that is the impact that I personally want to create, rather than opening hybrid centers for kids who can afford to pay 5 lakh, let's say 1 lakh or 2 lakh rupee for a 1-year coaching. Of course, that's also a good business. If a market exists, why would I not tap that market? But that is not going to create a dent in the universe. Offline centers, you think about the biggest coaching centers that you have heard, and just think about how many cities they have centers in, right? That will give you the answer. I can tell you that for my online courses, I get learners from every single pin code in India. I don't think there would be a single pin code in India from which I won't have a user. You can't replicate that in offline.
So in Excel, we also have online classes, and we see a lot of engagement as well as not so much engagement in the classes for some of the professors. These are the challenges they face routinely. So what do you think these challenges resonates with your teachers also, and how do you overcome them?
So naturally, there is an element of screen fatigue when you are studying online, right? So it depends on your situation. Like I said when I was answering to the previous question, is, let's say if you're studying for IIT, that's a very intense 2-year course. Is online better than going to Kota and studying from, let's say, in the best coaching center of Kota? Probably not. Your chances are higher if you do that. But then how many people can do that? How many people can afford to move to Kota, pay 2.5 lakh rupee to a coaching center and another 2 lakh rupee for relocating there, or and let's say taking a year gap? How many people can do that? Maybe not more than 30 or 40,000 rupees. Our courses from the same educators, the same best educators at Kota, comes at a fraction of the cost. So it's about who you are building for. So the debate is not whether online is better or whether offline is better. Offline may be better for 30, 40, 50,000 people or even 1 lakh learners. But like I told you, I come from a very, very remote village in Bihar, right? I never had an option of going to Kota. So for learners who have, let's say if you have the financial background and if you have the exposure, if you are staying in a metro or a tier 1 city, then it's a choice for you. But if you don't come from that sort of a background, it's not even a choice for you. There's no question. I'll give you an example. There is a learner called Brotin Bandal who comes from a very, very remote location in West Bengal. So he was an academy learner and he cracked rank 1 in IIT JEE Main last year. So in his interview, the same question was asked, whether online is better than offline. And he said offline was never an option for him. He comes from a family of 5 and the 5 people stay in one single room, right? His father is a person who earns in daily wages, right? He could still buy a 14,000 rupee Unacademy subscription because he naturally got some scholarship as well. A 5 lakh rupee, let's say going to Kota and spending 5 lakh rupee was never an option. So when you build product, you should question, are you building a lifestyle business? If you're building a lifestyle business, coaching center is a phenomenal business. You can make decent margin. We are not building a lifestyle business here. We are building a business which is going to impact a lot of lives, which is, so Unacademy is actually not taking away market share from these top offline player. Unacademy is creating a new category of people to whom quality education was never accessible before. Either they could not have moved cities, they could not have afforded the cost, or let's say, for example, some of you, let's say after you finish your Excel, you'll go and do some jobs, right? If you intend to take a course, leaving a job and going and stay, let's say sitting in Delhi is not an option, right? So Unacademy, I'll give you the example of Unacademy learners cracking UPSC exams. So before EdTech, if you had to crack UPSC, the answer was very clear. Leave your job, go and sit in Delhi for 2 years, study, stay in those, let's say, small rooms, jisko PG kehte hain, go there and let's say prepare for 2 years and then crack the exam. And at the end of it, if you're not able to crack it, you are finished, right? Because you're basically screwed up your career. And now the advantage of online is that a lot of people are actually preparing from various other locations. Now moving to Delhi, leaving your job is not a constraint anymore. When I prepared for my CAT or for my GMAT, I used to stay in Noida those days. I was working and I used to leave office every day at 7. And I used to go to Connaught Place all 4 days a week, because the Connaught Place Career Launcher Center was the best. There was a very famous teacher called Satish who was the teacher in my batch. I used to drive my bike for 1.5 years every single day from Noida to Connaught Place just to study. Then from 8 till 10, my classes used to go on at Connaught Place. And after 10, again, I used to drive my bike for 1.5 hours back to Noida. I used to have dinner at 11:30 every single day. And then I used to wake up till 2:30 to do self-study. So I literally tortured myself for 2 years. It was such a, I would say, painful experience of going from Noida to Delhi every single day, 3 hours. For what? Just to study in a physical room from that teacher. So imagine if Unacademy was available to me in those days, I would have definitely gone for it. So if your, so bottom line is, if your financial background allow, if your circumstances allow, probably going to offline educational institutions or offline coaching center or whatever the scenario is may even be better than online. I'm not even debating it. But what online has done is what Indigo did to, let's say, the aviation sector some years back. Indigo never took away market share from Kingfisher or Jet Airways, right? They created a new market. They probably took market share away from Indian Railways. They created a whole new segment. A lot of people for the first time became flyers because of Indigo. So that is what EdTech did to education in India, not just us, but all other peers in the EdTech industry as well. So you have to look at it from that perspective. For some, it may be choice, but for most learners, offline was never a choice.
While we are at this online versus offline debate, we have a question from the audience. Pratik Mehta says, online versus offline MBA, do you believe?
That's a very relevant question. I saw that. See, let's be frank. I also have been to a tier 1 business school, and you guys are attending XLRI. You're not there for education. Let's be honest to ourselves. Had it only been the courses, the curriculum, the content that is getting delivered, then I don't think the content or the curriculum or the teaching at XLRI will be dramatically different from, let's say, even any of the top 20 or top 30 schools, right? So you're not there to study. So top tier business schools, you are there to network, right? So you go to top tier schools because you network with industry professionals, you compete with best people, right? Your peers are people who must have scored 99.9 in whatever ZAT or CAT or GMAT or whatever entrance exams that you took. So there is a selection bias. So you compete and you benchmark yourself with the best people. Then it's also, I think the biggest reason why you're there is signaling, right? The whole idea of that tier 1 MBA tag. So in this particular case, online MBA doesn't work because it doesn't give you that tag. It doesn't give you the signal. You don't get to experience the peer group that you otherwise experience in a campus MBA. You don't get to interact with the professors, the top quality professors that you otherwise interact in an offline MBA. So in this specific course, in the specific, let's say, case of MBA, there is no substitute of let's say a full-time residential course. Online courses doesn't solve for that. If your intent is just to study, then probably online, even an online MBA makes sense. But to be very frank with you, today I probably don't use any concepts or any theory that I studied in my MBA, right? I mean, I may use it indirectly. I think I learned a lot. I think what I gathered from my MBA online, or let's say classes, were only a fraction of it, not even 10%. 90% of it was my interactions with the faculty outside the classroom. 90% of it was the networking that I did. 90% of it was the kind of people, my peers, the kind of opportunities that a flagship ISB course opened for me, right? The brand value on my CV. So because online doesn't replicate that, hence I would say that a offline flagship full-time MBA is any day better. But here the context is very different.
So let's move back to Unacademy now. There's just one thing that we are curious about. We track a learner's performance through tests and quizzes. So how do you at Unacademy track the performance of your educators?
Oh, a lot.
Your efficiency.
So that's another power of the platform. In an offline environment, it's very, very difficult to actually assess how your educators are doing, right? It's more of subjective. In a platform, it becomes there's tons of data that is available, and you can crunch that data to find out which teacher is more likely to succeed. Naturally, there is feedback from learners. So in every class, the learner can give a thumbs down, thumbs up, or thumbs down. If you give less than 4 rating to a teacher, there's a double click as well. So say, for example, might not be the best examples, but let's say when you take an Uber ride, as a rider, if you give a less than 4 rating, then the app asks you, right? What did you not like? Was the AC not working? Were you overcharged? What was the location wrong? Did the driver take, let's say, took longer to come to your location? So similarly, there's a lot of feedback that is collected about every teacher and every single class from learners. So that's one source. Then we also get to know what is the watch minutes of every teacher. So watch time, right? If a teacher is getting more watch time, which means that teacher is gaining popularity. Then the third angle is outcomes. If a teacher is producing the result, then the teacher is good. But that outcome comes after the end of the academic season. So that's a bit more difficult norm. But yeah, a platform gives you a lot of ways to actually find out. Say, for example, if the drop rate in a particular teacher, so let's say if 100 students are attending the first class and then by the 5th class only 20 come back, then that's bad, right? So in an online platform, you can actually crunch a lot of data to understand how each educator is performing.
So since we are talking about the internal processes, I also want to take a peek on the product development which happens in an academy. So can you please throw some light on this?
So the product development naturally is the leadership that sets the vision. So let's say there are leadership meetings which happens every week, and in those meetings, because product development cannot be looked in isolation, product is built for a market, right? So the strategic calls are taken in those leadership meetings, and then the product team goes along with the business team. They do learner surveys, they do competitive benchmarking, they speak to stakeholders like other players or educators, and then they come up with a thesis. Then mock-ups are prepared, mock-up is shown to the leadership, it's signed off, then the product team starts working on it, MVP is done, we go live with the MVP, we collect feedback. There are 2-3 levels of iterations on it. And of course, whenever a new product is launched, some of the hypotheses that we had established at the beginning, it's proven wrong. So right, so we are very quick in again going back and changing it. So, and then there are naturally after 3 or 4 iterations, we arrive at the final product. So that is how it is done. Every company is different in this regard. In the larger companies, it is more a bottoms-up approach, but in a company like an academy, it's more top-down. It's also about what's the DNA of the leadership. So here the leadership is very, very strong on, or very, very, let's say, excited and committed about product, and when it comes to building great products. So here most of the vision and strategy comes from the leadership. If you look at Amazon, it's going to be very different. It's going to be probably the other way around.
So how do you see the future of the edtech industry right now?
Future naturally looks very bright. See, COVID has, but a lot of people have started asking this question after COVID, and I say to them that it's very similar what demonetization did to fintech. And I was actually in the fintech industry on the day of demonetization, so I can tell you that when demonetization happened and suddenly fintech companies started doing very well, there was a lot of noise about this bubble being there in fintech, right? So people thought that what would happen after demonetization? And I was a strong believer that demonetization had only accelerated the vision or accelerated the adoption of digital payments product. Similarly, the move from offline to online education was inevitable. By 2025, at the current pace, about double-digit percentage, let's say about 20% of education, especially in the categories that we are present in, is going to move online. What COVID did is it only accelerated that process. Probably we would have taken 2 more years if, let's say, if the pandemic had not happened, because it's a fundamentally much better way of delivering education. You can reach out. I explained in response to some other questions, you are able to touch more lives, you are able to create more impact in an online format, you are able to scale it, let's say online businesses much quicker. The quality control on educator quality, control on learner experience, you are able to control it to a very high degree. The economics are also great of an online business, right? And then in an offline business, 25%, 30% of the, if you look at the P&L of any coaching center or any offline business, look at the P&L of, let's say a tier 1 MBA college for that matter, 20-35% of the cost is going to be either the rent or the amortization of the infra that they have put in, right? So online actually removes all that. Online also gives flexibility to learners to study from anywhere. It gives accessibility to people coming from certain, let's say, not so economically sound sections. It gives options, you have choices, right? So in every respect, online education has a lot of advantage, and hence the move to online is inevitable. In some category, it will be more pronounced. For example, the certifications and the upskilling business, I think it will entirely move online. It will entirely move online. I don't think in future anybody is going to pay any university to do a 6-month digital marketing course, on-campus course, because it's stupid. I think that can be done in an online format in a much better way. So in some segments of EdTech, it will be much more pronounced. In some other segment, the impact may not be that much pronounced, but the move is inevitable, and hence EdTech holds a lot of promise. You also have to see it from another lens. All of you. So let's say which Indian company comes to your mind when you think about great tech startups? I request people to post it here on chat. Which is your favorite startup out of India? Can I see some replies, please? Just name some companies. Zomato, Grow. Okay, perfect. Swiggy, perfect, awesome. Thank you for saying Unacademy. Thank you. Ola, perfect, awesome. So now I'll tell you, why do I have a lot of faith and conviction on both EdTech and FinTech? Ola, Oyo, Zomato, Swiggy, they are building a product for how many people? So let's say the population of India is 130 crore. How many people will order food online in 2025? 10 crore max, 20 crore at max, right? So the market that they're addressing itself is probably only 10-20% of what our population is, right? It's relevant for them. Today, 10 crore people are not ordering food online, but let's say I'm taking the best case scenario, TAM, the total addressable market. Total addressable market for Ola or Uber is people staying in tier 1 and metros, right? Because only they are the one who are going to take cabs. Village mein to Ola, Uber kabhi chalne wala hai nahi, right? TAM for Oyo is probably 500 cities of India. That's it. 500 cities and towns of India, right? So that is what puts constraints to those businesses. But when it comes to EdTech and FinTech, even a beggar sitting outside, or let's say even a better beggar sitting outside a temple, even that person accepts some form of payment. A transaction goes on even there. That is why FinTech is valued at, or whatever FinTech commands the multiple that they command, right? Yeah, so somebody mentioned Paytm, right? So you must have seen images of even a let's say a fruit seller accepting payment from his or her customers using the new age FinTech product. So if there are 130 crore Indian, I think everyone is going to do some sort of a payment or a transaction, right? Similarly, let's say if we believe in the thesis that very soon we'll achieve 100% literacy in the country, all 130 crore Indian would consume some education product in their lifetime. So the reason why EdTech or FinTech is receiving so much limelight, it's not a bubble. There's a very, very valid reason why these players are receiving such huge limelight, because they are building products which are meaningful to every single Indian. That's one. Second, have you seen Unacademy office in various cities, or have you seen our hoardings, or have you seen Razorpay opening 500 offices, or Razorpay hoardings, or have you seen a lot of newspaper ads done by Razor? You would never see that, because these are very, very asset light businesses. How many of you come from a manufacturing background here in this panel? Can people just post here on comments? Okay, perfect. So imagine I'm running a factory where I have infinite stock. So my stock is somebody consuming my digital content. Whether 1 crore people consume it or whether 100 crore people consume it, I have zero incremental cost in manufacturing that stock, right? There's zero, I only have fixed cost. I have zero variable cost. Can Ola say that? No. What is the maximum number of rides that Ola can do in Delhi in a day? If let's say Ola has 45,000 cabs, the maximum number of rides that they can do is 45,000 cars multiplied by 10 rides per car per day. That's it. I have no such constraints. See, so and the same goes for Razorpay. So imagine running a business where you have infinite capacity, infinite stock. I have no warehousing cost. I have no delivery cost. I have no returns. I don't have to manage any 3PL. So two factors, FinTech and EdTech, so heavily valued and so much of limelight because they are building products for the entire country that's relevant for the entire country, and very, very asset light operations, highly scalable operations, highly product and technology led operations. So that's why I have complete faith on this sector. Now, who is going to win EdTech or who's going to win FinTech? I don't know. What I know is that we are definitely not batting for the number 2 spot here. We are playing to win in this market. Maybe, but the outcome will only come in the next 5 or 10 years. It's a marathon. Building a great iconic company is it's not about your recent round of valuation, or it's not about how much PR or media coverage you get. It's a very, very tough grind. So we'll come to know if we don't drift away, if we let's say, don't lose track, I'm sure we are going to win. But whoever wins, I think the first $100 billion company emerging out of India is going to be either a fintech or edtech company.
So Vivek, and to my audience, extremely sorry, we are running out of time. So I'll just end this session by giving you a short word of thanks. It was a sheer pleasure to have you, Vivek, here, especially on a Sunday evening. And we would like to hear from you more anytime soon. So thank you so much from the entire XPGDM batch.
Thank you, Mona Lisa. Thank you all students.
Thank you. Thank you,
The
Vivek.
final parting advice to you is never play for the number 2 spot. Just play for the number 1 spot. Okay, I wish you all of you a great career. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Vivek. So we'll have our final session on 8 o'clock. Thank you.
At XLRI, we focus on a management education framework that is integrative and offers students an opportunity to develop and pursue new ideas at the same time. We constantly evolve our curriculum in line with changing economic and social landscapes. Besides the flagship programs, XLRI has added many new executive and certificate programs over the years to meet the growing demand of various industry sectors. Our virtual interactive learning program and entrepreneurship programs are our two key offerings.
Hello, good morning, sir.
Hello, how are you, Shitab?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
All good.
So we are good to, so we are good to go, sir. We'll start the session now. Good evening, everyone. I'm Shwetab Verma, and with me we have Mr. Sandeep Gupta for a fireside chat on the topic, putting innovation at the heart of healthcare. Thank you so much, sir, for being here. It's absolute privilege and pleasure to host you On behalf of XLRI Jamshedpur and on behalf of the Ingenium Startup Conclave, we welcome you to the session. In fact, I'll also welcome all the audience. It's a large crowd and the session is being live streamed cast on the YouTube as well. So let me quickly start. Let me introduce the man of the hour, Mr. Sandeep Gupta. Mr. Sandeep Gupta is the co-founder and chief operating officer at the Innovaser. Under his leadership, Innovaser has developed a proprietary data activation platform, which has unified records for more than 39 million members and generated more than $600 million in saving, $600 million in saving. Prior to co-founding Innovaser, he has garnered experience in MNCs such as Ingersoll Rand and Microsoft Corporation. Under Sandeep's leadership, riding high on the success of the Innovaser Health Cloud, the company has recorded a 400% year-on-year in terms of revenue and a 100% customer retention rate. Innovaser's solution have been successfully implemented across 1,000 plus locations in healthcare institutions, government organizations, and corporate enterprises, with over 70,000 providers leveraging it seamlessly at institutions, governmental organizations, and several corporate enterprises. With Mr. Sandeep's continuous efforts, Innovaser recently became the leading population health management vendor across the United States with a top score of 97 on the KLS portal, surpassing every other player in the category, and has also been recognized by other reputed firms, including Gartner, Black Book Market Research, Forbes, Economic Times, Great Places to Work, LinkedIn, and many more. A very good morning, sir. I know you are in a different time zone. Thank you very much for taking out your time in the early hours of Sunday. So we'll start with a quick fireside chat, wherein we have around broader 6 to 7 questions, wherein we would love to hear your insights on, and then we'll open the house and we'll take some questions from the attendees.
Sure. So quick few things, Sudhab. First of all, just call me please Sandy. One of the things that you learn first thing coming out of your MBA, and it was not too long ago when I was on the other side, though it never used to be Zoom, it used to be in person, kind of meetups that happened back in the day, just like 7-10 years back. But please call me Sandy, and don't call me Mr. Gupta. That's my dad. I am Sandy, please. So address me as such. And guys, again, folks on the call, if you have questions, feel free to just write on the chat. Let's try and make this as interactive as possible. The intent is that at least coming out of the session, if you have a couple of learnings that you can then use in your own journeys, then that's the ideal outcome that we should aspire for.
Yeah, definitely, sir. Definitely, Sandy. So to start with, the first question what I have for you is, you co-founded Innovaser a couple of years after graduating. So how did it come about? I mean, so it's very quick time that after graduating, and then in a span of 2 years, you got an idea and then you incorporated Innovaser. So how it was, and what is the thought process involved, the decision phase? So could you please tell us about this journey?
Sure. So I graduated my MBA. I got done in 2011 from IIM Ahmedabad, right? And like again, as I said, it was not too long ago when I was on the other side and talking to several other entrepreneurs. So again, I think right from the beginning, even during my graduation days, I wanted to do something in the field of entrepreneurship. And so that was an ongoing kind of an interest at all point in time. And I was evaluating like multiple number of ideas as to what can be done, how it can be done, and all those kind of things. So when after IIM Ahmedabad, I ended up joining an organization called Ingersoll Rand. There I met my fellow entrepreneurs who like were working with me in the same organization at that point in time. And that's where the initial idea came to our mind. I think the very important piece over there for us was that I got a team in play, some people that I could trust and they could trust me in return. And we got this amazing opportunity where Howard University at that point in time was trying to work on a project which involved data analytics. They wanted access to a huge quantum amount of data. And this was a joint collaboration project between Howard and Wharton at that point in time. And we just launched at that opportunity in terms of going for it. Again, the initial starting few years from 2012. So at that time, Innovaser was not even founded. It was more as a partnership firm that we were doing from 2012, 2013. And then some part of 2014, where we were working with some 70 of the top 100, 70 of the top 100 research organizations across the world, so to say. So post the success that we got from Harvard and Wharton, we then moved over and worked with MIT, we worked with Stanford, we worked with pretty much NASA, like any of the names that you can think about. The projects that we were doing with them was services projects. And in those services projects, the work that we were doing for them was getting them access to high fidelity, high quality data from unstructured sources. We would use machine learning, natural language processing to get the data in that desired format so that the researchers can then do their kind of analysis on top of it and get it to the next phase. So it was services oriented at them. So when we decided, the first pivot for us happened when we decided to go from the services module into the productized kind of a module. So that was the first pivot. That happened in 2014. And that's the time when we founded Innovisa as a Delaware corporation in the US. And the reason why we founded it in the US was that, again, the majority of our market was in the United States back in the day, and still is from the services, from the product market fit perspective. Now, so that's how the company came about at a very high level. Again, there was a separate set of challenges when we decided that, okay, we will now be a product company. We decided to bring all our learnings that we had done from 2012 to 2014 into this platform that we created, which we called as the data activation platform. Finding the product market fit was a challenge in itself. Where like you had to go and like I had to go door to door, talking to customers, trying to figure out if this makes sense and making that sale. But eventually it all worked out. So not a very fairy tale kind of a journey, Sweta, but yes, like over a period of 3 years, I would say that it was a lot of blood, toil, and like sweat, so to say, that it came about.
Thank you, sir. So to add on to this question, the next question what I have for you is, I saw a few videos on YouTube where I got to know that Innovisa first started with different domains like finance, retail, to name few. I mean, how it started, and then finally it became kind of a healthcare focused company. So I mean, how and why it was limited to only healthcare?
Yeah, no, so we have done several pivots. A pivot is a term I'm not sure if all of you guys on the phone or on the call are aware of. Pivot is that when as a startup, you change your direction and move into a different direction. So that's called as a pivot, right? Now, one thing which is very important for all startups is that how confident are of their pivot, and then can they carry it through. So the first pivot that I explained to you that we did early in our journey was that from a services company, we moved and became a product company. It was a very hard call to take at that point in time. And what that meant was that we would stop doing business with the researchers and the research organizations across the globe. And we would then like have a period of time when we would hardly make any revenue. We would have to create the product with which we'll have to go into the market. So that was the first pivot. The second pivot then that happened, so like after we decided that, okay, we'll go into the enterprise market, we started selling into retail, finance, healthcare being one of them. And I still remember that when we did this pivot that, okay, we will go into this, into the product kind of a sale kind of a mode. This was 2015, almost 2014 and 2015 end that we made this pivot. And there was some period of time when we were not making that much of revenue because our services had stopped and we were trying to make the product. We were still not funded by anyone. So it was a fairly kind of a hard time from a cash flow perspective. And we were trying to make that sale sitting out of India in the US, which is always very, very tough because you have to have an in-person kind of meetups and all those kind of things. So the first hard part of this journey was that, okay, you know what, like with $200 in my pocket, I was shipped over to the US that, okay, guys, let's try and find out some more business over there. So like trying to do that in the Wall Street in New York, in a totally kind of a new place. Like I hadn't gone to the US prior. It was the first kind of an experience and exposure, but doing that was something of a very like interesting learning, so to say the least. And but when you like again work hard enough and you have got a great team to support you, you end up getting business. So we did end up getting some very prestigious brands in a short period of time, which was in 2015, in a period of 12 months. Some of the brands, for example, Walter Kluwer's, Disney, Harley Davidson, We were about to close Bank of America. We also got one of the healthcare organizations with the name of Catholic Health Initiative. And this was like a health system based out of Iowa. Iowa is one of the states in the United States. So that's where the journey then started of us going into enterprise. And in a period of, let's say, 12 months or so, we like got deep into them. That's when we understood that, what we were trying to develop at that point in time was a horizontal data platform. Now, being a horizontal data platform, the challenge was that we were not able to figure out the nuances of the vertical that we were trying to solve. Probably if we had continued in that domain, we could have become a Snowflake, or we could have become kind of like more of a Splunk kind of a setup, which is more industry agnostic and a horizontal kind of a framework. But we took a decision, and it was a very hard decision at that time. This was a second pivot. The second pivot that we did was that we'll go away from all industry, from being industry agnostic. We decided to focus just one-on-one in healthcare. Now, when we took that decision, we had to leave approximately 70% of our revenue on the table. So we were reduced to just 30% of our revenue size. So it was a very, very hard decision to take at the time. The good news was that we had just got funded with Series A. So that was the first funding that we had raised. So again, the revenue pressure was not so much. Otherwise, it would have been very, very hard for us to take the decision. And the investors were supporting us in terms of that, yes, let's go industry deep. So that was the first point of it. The second point of that was that healthcare was a big mess. It was a big problem. So even if you take a look at all the verticals, and I just had an opportunity to join the last panelist who was talking about EdTech. So if you take a look at FinTech, you take a look at EdTech, you take a look at retail, all these are markets that have got fairly advanced solutions already in play. And they by no mean of imagination are they, you could say that, these are new segments, or these are hot mess segments. Healthcare is definitely a hot mess segment in terms of that, even in the most advanced market, which is United States, the data is extremely siloed. You don't get a single patient record to understand what the patient is facing a challenge on. So even if you don't have the data at a patient level, and then even when you get the data, the question is, what do you do with the data in terms of what kind of analytics can be done? So think about a future, right? And which is not probably today. Think about it 10 years from today, 15 years from today, that basis some of the med devices that, let's say, patients like you and I, and when I say patients, those are average like Joe, like you and I. So we are wearing all those kind of devices in terms of, it could be a ring, it could be maybe some kind of a headset that we are wearing. From this, the vitals of our body are getting transmitted into a singular kind of a place. Now, basis, if something which is out of the ordinary, you can be given predictive analytics in terms of that if you are going to have some kind of a challenge, and accordingly an intervention can be provided to you. Now, with this kind of a tech, you can have a higher kind of a survival rate, your mortality rates could go down. So again, there is a lot of benefit in this kind of tech. So there are 2-3 steps in that, right? A, get the digital infrastructure in place that you have the data at a patient level. Second, you have advanced analytics to a level that you can start predicting the health of an individual, and you can start predicting that, okay, what interventions are they going to need, and accordingly, right? And then there is population health management in terms of who's the high risk patient. So what are the kind of things you should be doing with them so that you bring down the cost of care and you provide and improve the quality of care. So again, I know a lot of things that I get very passionate about healthcare. But by the way, just in full disclosure, I had zero training of healthcare prior to 2015. The most I knew about healthcare is that a couple of times I had to go to a doctor, and that's all I knew about it. So it was absolutely a new arena, but to the point that if you like put your attention span to something, you can very well become like a PhD in that market if you spend enough time in it over a period of a year or maybe 18 months, right? And that's what all of our team is. All of our team, and in 2015, we decided to go into healthcare. We were very, very new to it. But very soon in 2016, we then brought in a bunch of doctors on the panel. We brought a lot of nurses into the team. We learned from them. We divide, like again, we brought in products into the market. And then since then, we have been scaling on. So it was a tough decision, Sweta, to tell you, but again, worked very, very well for us in hindsight.
Inspiring. So the next question is a little longer with some data involved. So since based on the research and based on the readings I have been through, Innovator has had an incredible journey. It has 39 million plus patients on the health cloud, 70,000 plus providers across 1,000 locations, 600 million plus savings generated for providers, and backing from several market investors. In the words of one of your investors, one of your investors at Innovator has all the necessary. So Innovator has all the necessary pillars to define the new gold standard of how the health cloud should be implemented by providers, payers, and life sciences companies. Has built the most successful data activation platform in the healthcare industry and is likely the first and the only company since the invention of electronic health records that has the opportunity to unify the healthcare ecosystem. With the recent Series E funding of $150 million, Innovator is now valued at $3.2 billion, driven by rapid customer adoption of the Innovator Health Cloud. Most of the part you have already covered. So I just want to have an insight on how would you describe the journey so far?
Yeah, no, it's been, as I said, right? So it's been a very interesting, challenging journey nevertheless. And the two pivots that I already explained to you, one was the services to product pivot. The second pivot was going from multi-sector into a single sector, which was just healthcare. Now, the immediate next challenge that came after that was that, okay, how do you now go about understanding the healthcare market itself and then scaling off into it, right? And that we have been doing from 2016. So it's been approximately 5 years since we have been into it, and where we got reduced to. So after our pivot into just healthcare, we were into low single digit $1 million in terms of revenue. We are almost touching now $100 million in revenue. So we have managed to reach that magic number that used to be tracked back in the day. In like around 5.5 years or so. So that's been one of the things that we are really proud of. Again, valuations and everything are something that we don't like to talk about in the market, frankly. And this is on the last press release is the only one that we did it. The reason why we had to do it is that we are working in the enterprise market space, right? So we are a B2B company. And when we would go to these very large organizations, they would not even have heard about us and we would be a nobody. And walking into the room, it would be that, guys, like, you are just like college kids and you're telling me that this is how it should be done. So we would get every door slammed on our face. Now, with a very strong valuation and number to back us, at least the person who is going to talk to us is like, "Acha, kuch to kahi sahi kiya hoga na." So like he has got that number. So I think it's more for market validation that we give that number out. Again, it's just a number. It can go plus and minus depending on how your performance is. I think the core of this is that if you continue to serve your customers, and one of the other things that we are very proud of is that we have had zero churn till date, zero undesired churn till date. So even the customers that got onboarded into the platform in 2015 are still working with us. So it's been 7 years now. So none of them have left. And again, this is a hard statement to make in the area of B2B rather than B2C. B2C is a very different kind of a market. B2C is that, okay, high churn and you keep on expanding. But B2B play, when I say B2B, it's a business to business. I'm sure all of us understand on the call about it. So it's a very different kind of a play where your net customer retention becomes a huge kind of a metric that you have to measure. And till the point in time, your customer have given you a high NPS, net promoter score is very high. And you are growing, let's say, late double digit, early triple digit, 80 to 100% in terms of revenue. I think the rest, everything will fall in play. So those are the most important things.
So the next question is, I find it very important because whenever we get to a thought, to start something new, so we kind of are not able to foresee the challenges which could come up in the later stage. So we would like to know what are some of the most formidable challenges you faced in scaling Innovator? Sure.
Yeah. So like, again, from a scaling point of view, right? So the first and the biggest challenge was that way back in 2015-16, going and getting our first customer and establishing the product market fit. When you go out into the work environment and everything, you'll hear this word a lot. If you're working in the product domain for product companies, a lot of them will talk about something which is they call as a PMF or the product market fitment. What product market fitment is all about is that whatever product that you have made, is the market adopting it? So I think before even I get to the scaling aspect of it, just establishing the product market fitment was one of the biggest challenges, where we had to set up some, let's say 100 odd meetings, and we had to go and meet them. We had to understand what the problem points and the challenges were. And again, one of the major misconception amongst a lot of I would say entrepreneurs out there, and like even when a lot of other fellow kind of other companies ask me, is that the entrepreneur or the is sitting out of India and they're trying to sell in some other part, right? US, Europe, wherever that be. They're trying to establish product market fit, and their point is that, okay, you know what, I'll hire a couple of sellers in US, or I'll hire somebody in the US who will do it for me. That is one of the major kind of a folly or the challenge that they end up doing, because like goes the saying in Hindi, right? Apne mare bina swarg nahi milta. So until unless you do it yourself, you're not going to learn it. And as an entrepreneur, it's so important. As a founder, it is so important that you are very close to your customer to try and understand the pain point, so that you can change your product, you can iterate your product, and then you can think of it accordingly. So in the scaling journey, the first part is establishing the product market fit, be extremely close to your customer, try and understand from them what their problems are, and accordingly change your product, iterate your product. The second thing that then comes into play is that how do you now scale up your organization? And again, that depends on the markets. You could be servicing the India market, you could be servicing Europe, you could be servicing US, whatever that place is, building up the team, so to say. And the big challenge for us was building up the US team. And when I say building up the US team, it was also a building up a US team in healthcare. So we had to hire a bunch of doctors, we had to hire a bunch of registered nurses. And again, we had not even hired them in the India domain in the first place. So going and doing that in the US was several multifold kind of a challenge, because again, a lot of these people are 20, 25, 30 years more experienced than you. And you are trying to bring them on board. You're trying to, like, again, build up a company, so to say. So it was fairly challenging. But again, in hindsight, that's how you just learn. When you throw yourself at a given challenge, that's how you learn. So the challenges were in this area of, like, again, building up this entire kind of team in the US, and then like also bringing them to speed in terms of like what the motivation structure should be, how they should think about from a cultural standpoint, working in the India-US corridor, so to say. So even till date, we have got a very strong India presence in terms of like roughly 70% of our team is in India, and we are now roughly around 1,400 people or so. So team in the US is increasing quite a bit, but India team continues to be a very strong part of it. So how do you work in that India-US corridor at a very high level where the cultural mismatch is significant, but you still ensure that there is at least a professional relationship that gets created. And then again, convincing customers and retaining them, customer success. So the list keeps going on and on in terms of the scale up challenges. Even and like again, the challenges at every stage are very different. When we were at $2 million, the challenge used to be that, okay guys, can you scale up to $10 million, which involved a lot of hand-to-hand combat in terms of founders themselves going and making the sale. Then comes 10 to 25 in terms of that now you start hiring up a sales team, a GTM team, go-to-market team, so that you can start making up that presence. Then comes the challenge of going from 25 to 50 and 50 to 100, where now you want to have a very professional kind of an executive team who has done this multiple number of times, and they are backing you in terms of what they are leading you in terms of that they can repeat that same level of success. And then comes the journey of taking it from $100 million in revenue to $1 billion in revenue. So again, like one question to each, like not question, but one suggestion to each one of you, and like a lot of you will become entrepreneurs in the next few years, is that chase after customer success or chase the revenue that you're generating from them. Valuations are a point in time things. They can be very surprising. You will be positively surprised more often than not, but you could be negatively surprised as well. And that's okay. Till the point in time, your customer success is very strong, your revenue is growing, I think that nothing else like really matters. So yeah.
That answers my question. So the next question what I have is, what's next for Innovaccer, the future and the vision of the company? Are you going to, I mean, obviously you're not, but do you have any plans of going back from where you started, like venturing into different dimensions, like how you started? Because now healthcare is doing fine. So, I mean, with respect to healthcare, what are your plans, or do you have any plans of going back and maybe doing something which you could not do at that moment when you started, or maybe you would be
Sure.
knowing now, okay, what failed at that time and what corrective actions would be taken to kind of restart from where it was.
Sure. Like, again, one of the things that as a budding entrepreneur, and whenever you're making a pitch to any of the investors, everyone is, and I'm sure you would have done this analysis a lot of times in your case studies, is that you do a market assessment in terms of calculating the total addressable market, right? And there would have been a number of questions that have been asked that, okay, if you're doing this, tell me the addressable market or total market size. Back in the day when I used to do this analysis, I used to feel that this is a hogwash. And why are you asking me this question? This, like, does it really even matter? Like, you will ask me a number which is like $100 billion or $50 billion or $1 billion. This is so large a market that I really don't care that even if it is $1 billion, I can go and achieve what I have to, kind of thing, right? Now, in hindsight, I understand the importance of that question, and I'll explain why that is tied into your question that you were asking, Sweta. The larger the market TAM that you have, what it means is that you can keep on expanding in that space and never ever have to pivot if you are performing great. Now, if you look at the healthcare market TAM at this point in time, and when I take TAM, that is total addressable market, right? So when I look at the addressable market of healthcare in the US, it is roughly like in the range of $70 to $80 billion just within the US. And that is what we are going after. The total addressable is otherwise much more larger, but this is the market segment that we are going after. That is $70 to $80 billion that you have in front of you. Now, the other thing attached to that is that this is just US. Healthcare is a global problem. People are going to get old. They are going to get more healthcare services. Recession or no recession, healthcare never has a recession. It keeps working on. Even like there are theories which say that during recession, healthcare increases more because of, for obvious reasons, right? But the point being that if you calculate now the TAM of all the other world, that adds another $100 billion to the TAM itself. So you're talking about a market which has got a capability of supporting today roughly around $170 to $200 billion in TAM, and which is growing very rapidly at a 20% CAGR or something like this year over year. Now, if you are into that kind of a market space, you really need not focus anywhere else. We are a very tiny segment of that overall TAM, that we are just $100 million in the overall $170 to $200 billion. It's like we are a small speck in the entire universe at that point in time. So there is so much to service in this area that, like, again, creating $1 billion in revenue organization, going to $10 billion, again, execution is the key. That how do you end up executing it? But all of that is within the realm of possibility that you will create that revenue organization at the end of the day. So all transparency, again, we are not looking at expanding into other domains. We will remain in healthcare. We will probably go multi-geography, that's expanding into Europe, or let's say some of the other places where we are seeing now the same problems and challenges that are coming through. But we want to retain and remain as a 100% healthcare organization, healthcare analytics, healthcare platform organization.
That answers my question. The next question what I have for you is, what are the current challenges in the healthcare sector and how Innovaccer is committed to resolve them with respect to India and US and across the...
Yeah, so challenges of every country are very, very different. Again, as I said, the US is a little bit advanced in this journey because they ended up digitizing their health records in the first place, right? So every patient in the US has got a digital record, which they call as an electronic health record, which they have, right? India, there's challenges are a little bit different. Now, India is now learning a lot from it with a common stack that has been trying to be created. There is this entire kind of a intent from the central government itself that they're working on, in which we are working with them at some level to figure out that how we can learn from the mistakes that were happening or did happen in the US when they were doing the same thing around 2008, 2009, when they ended up creating this entire electronic health record. So the challenges of every country are very, very different depending on which part of the maturity curve they currently are. In the US, considering that they are already having the electronic health records, their big challenge is that it is so siloed that having a single point of record becomes very, very challenging because same individual could have 10 different records. And those 10 records could be a little bit different depending on when did you talk to that individual. They will be different and you will not get a holistic picture at an individual level. The other challenge that ends up happening is that how do you now deliver advanced analytics on top of this health record? And then how do you involve the different stakeholders during the care continuum? And when I say care continuum, it will be the doctor or the provider at the point of care. It could be the nurse, or it could be the assistant who is trying to follow up with you to ensure that you are getting the requisite care plan and you are taking up your requisite kind of medication or not. That's a US kind of a challenge. If you think about India, they are even earlier in terms of that they're figuring out right now that how does the electronic health record look like, why, and how do they not get into the problem of multiple health records. With the single health record, then again, there comes in the challenge of security, that the security and compliance. And obviously you're talking about the healthcare data, which is extremely, extremely sensitive, probably even more sensitive in some record than your financial record. So how do you ensure that you have that security in place on top of the cloud where you are trying to now expand? So there's not a direct answer to that question, but again, it depends on a per geography basis, and hopefully that gives you a flavor of where the market is right now.
So the next question I have for you is, as an aggregator, bringing every stakeholders on one platform, what and how is Innovaccer contributing towards the control on cost of healthcare? What is your take on the sustainable pharmaceutical pricing, and when do you see this getting enacted upon?
Sure. So like again, pharmaceutical pricing is something which nobody has ever figured out. It just depends, and if you have got a patent in place, you will monetize it, right? And pharma business works that way because you take 100 shots at finding that drug that can solve a problem, right? For example, think about the recent COVID crisis. So many pharma companies ended up like spending billions of dollars trying to figure out what the shot is. Now, 1 or 2 ended up making it, maybe 5 or 6 ended up making it. Now the billions of dollars that have gone in, they're trying to monetize through the sales of it, right? So they have got some large kind of numbers attached to it in terms of very high gross margins, but they're kind of justifiable as well because that's how innovation just happens. So market and industries which have tried to cap the pharmaceutical pricing to significant level, their innovation kind of just goes away because then the pharma does not invest in future drug delivery or future drug discovery. And that's the reason why they don't get like new kind of drugs coming out. And then you just become a generic drug organization in terms of that somebody else would have produced it. Now the patent runs out, let's say 20 years out, and then you end up creating the kind of like the generic drug around it, right? So that's a different kind of a challenge in totality, but like the lens that we are taking at in controlling the cost is that if you have truly patient 360, what we call that, which means that you have got a unified patient record. Now, one fact which is true for any other industry as well, and is so much more for healthcare, that 80% of the cost in healthcare is because of 20% of the patients. And these 20% of the patients are the highest risk patients, right? Now, if rather than focusing on the entire 100% of the patients, if you focus your time and energy on 20% of that patient, which are the highest risk patient, you will have much lower cost, right? So if you think of healthcare cost, not at an individual level, but at a population health level. When I say population health level, that's your entire state, that's an entire country from that standpoint. And if you're trying to control that cost at a very, very high kind of a level, then the value that comes in is that if you can identify the high risk patients, accordingly, you can try and reduce the cost because you will focus your interventions on the high cost patients. And that is one of the primary offering that we have for our customers in the United States today. So, yeah.
That answers my question. And moving, since you talked about the health data being very confidential more than the financial one. So here comes the data security part, where data security has always been a crucial factor across business streams. So it is even more, as you said, it is even more relevant and sensitive in the healthcare domain. How do you ensure that those using your platform did not worry about it? Because there are several breaches happening even with the cloud, I mean the iCloud, and then now most of the businesses have are moving towards deploying their solutions to several cloud platforms. So how do you see this?
Yeah, like again, See, we live in a environment, in a setup where there are going to be data breaches, irrespective of the kind of security and safety you adopt. How we kind of try and do at least that, like there are no data breaches being said, is that we have the best certifications in place, be that SOC 2 kind of a certification, or let's say ensuring that you have got like really enterprise grade kind of security protocols in place to ensure that there is no kind of data breaches that happen. But that being said, even if you look at all the kind of releases and like all the kind of other softwares that are there as well, breaches are going to happen. They might happen 1 in a million times, but they will happen. And again, when they happen, you have to still ensure that when a breach has happened, you can keep the data, let's say, at a level that the most critical aspect of it do not get exposed. So you try to do all of those kind of things. And again, before any enterprise grade customer is going to trust you and is going to invest in you in terms of purchasing your solution, they are going to test it to the last level of detail. So, and that is typically a common when even we are selling into any of our customers, they would do a very in-depth analysis of our platform in terms of the security and all those kind of things. Only once they are satisfied will they go ahead and sign that purchase order. So yeah, so again, it's just that you have to take care of all the certifications. You have to ensure that you are committed to it, you are investing enough in it, and then you hope that it sticks. So yeah, that's how pretty much the entire industry works.
So moving on to the next question, what I have is on behalf of everyone present here, what would be your advice for budding entrepreneurs present here?
Sure. So again, I think back in the day, 2010s, when I was like, again, doing this entrepreneurship kind of a setup, right? I don't think the market and like even the families were not kind of like, and when I say family, I come from Lucknow, UP, right? So, and when you do that kind of a thing that, okay, now you're done your engineering, you're done your MBA, now you're going to get a great job, and then you go and tell your parents one fine day that, okay, I want to do something on my own. The first thing that comes in is ki lag raha hai job nahi lag raha hoga, kind of a thing that comes back to you, and you are like that, no, this is my choice, I want to do it. So the good thing now that has happened is that I think that entrepreneurship is much more accepted in the society at large. And again, that's a great thing that has happened, because way back in 2010s, I think the only success story probably was Flipkart, which was just still coming out. It was 3 years in the making, but people had started talking about it, but like it wasn't like the kind of ecosystem that we have today. So from a societal pressure point of view and the ecosystem point of view, it has gone much easier. So, but again, it always feels that things are getting easier, but then there are separate challenges in itself as well, that now there are so many entrepreneurs or founders who are like coming in every day in, day out, right? So funding and everything else is getting challenging as well. Now, from a budding entrepreneur but point of view, again, like the reason why you are doing entrepreneurship, be very clear for the reason as to why you are doing it. Don't do it for the reasons that you probably read or hear somewhere that, okay, this is a rock star life and you will be walking in and you will be giving a presentation because you saw that movie which is based on Facebook, and you saw that the investor was pleading the entrepreneur or founder that please take my money. Never ever does that happen. More often than not, you would be booking your own tickets. And you would be trying to find out that what's the lowest cost ticket and how I can survive in, let's say, 100 rupees or a 10,000 rupees, because you have still not been funded at that point in time. So don't think that you are doing it for the glamour or the zazz attached to it. That may come later on, but it's very rare and very few. It is going to be a very hard kind of I would say a lifestyle choice that you're making. And again, don't do it for the reason that a lot of people that I talk to say that, you know what, I want to be my own boss. It feels like you will be your own boss, but then you are like everyone is your boss. Your customers are definitely your boss, your employees are definitely your boss because they can leave you tomorrow, your investors are definitely your boss, your board is your boss. So everyone else ends up being your boss. So please don't do entrepreneurship for the reason that, okay, I want to be my own boss. Do it because you want to create some value in the market, in the ecosystem. You want to create an everlasting legacy, if at all, or you have got a great idea in place that you want to like really bring to play. The other very critical fact of entrepreneurship is that having a very strong team at play. And again, when I say a team, these are your co-founders. So, and these co-founders you will probably end up creating during your days while you are doing your MBA or immediately after it in the first few jobs and stuff. But having co-founders is so important because you need a trusted head with which you can, or with whom you can brainstorm and you can get to an outcome as and when it is needed. And that's why you see that a lot of startups today, they are coming up with 3, 4 founders, 4 co-founders. Actually, even from an investor kind of mindset perspective, till the point in time you have 3 or so co-founders, it is considered to be a stable structure. If it is a single founder kind of a company, that's a single point of failure as well. So you want to have 2 or 3 heads together. And again, finding co-founder is tougher than finding a wife, probably, and probably much more tougher compared to that. You need to have absolute 100% trust. 60% of the reasons why most of the startups fail is that the co-founders end up fighting and they do not trust themselves enough. And maybe more. 60% is what is reported. I'm sure it is a bigger number. So finding the right kind of co-founders with whom you can trust, because you'll be spending 18, 19 hours a day for the near future, 5, 7 years kind of a thing. So unless you trust them so much, it becomes a very, very hard thing to do. So like 2 advices: A, do it for the right reason as to why you are motivated, because it's a hard journey. It is not going to be a bed of roses. It's going to be very, very challenging. So unless your motivation structure is in place, it will become very challenging. The second is get the right team in place. And when I say the right team, at a co-founder level, don't think about that I'll hire him or her. That is okay. But the most important thing is that build up a co-founder level team that you can trust. I have specifically not called about that, okay, what is the idea that you're going after? A lot of times it would be that, okay, you need to have an idea and we over-invest in the idea. If you have the right team, if you have the right motivation structure, I always believe that idea will come your way. We ourselves ended up pivoting twice, thrice in our overall journey till we got the right spot that we could scale on, but our motivation structure was right and our team was right. So a lot of times team end up spending a lot, like not team, individuals or founders end up spending a lot of time on what is my big idea, what is my big idea. Idea comes. Again, you will find your pot of gold at some point in time. That is your big idea, but don't end up spending your time just chasing for it. Spend your time, if at all, building up a team that you can trust, that you can enjoy working with, and the idea will find its way to you. Yeah, so Shweta, hopefully that helps.
Yeah, that will definitely help us. In continuation of this question, since Innovacer is the only player in this segment, so what would be your advice to us, like to, when you are having some idea with some modifications to do in the existing field, say the existing players are already there who are already successful. So how one should deal with this situation? I mean, how one should approach to fight the giants, what they have become over the time.
Absolutely. Everyone loves an underdog story. When I say an underdog story, don't ever assume that, this is one, again, way back in 2012s, 13s, when I was just starting up, one of the major challenges for me used to be that when I used to think about, yaar, ki isme to competition bahut zyada hai. Let me find an area which has got lower competition. That is one of the major kind of I would say misconception that I had to get over the board. If there is a market where competition is not there, then it is a reason why competition is not there. And the reason is the market is not good. If the competition is there, that is a direct testimony to the fact that the market is good. And there is, again, you have to do your market size analysis, the SAM analysis, the TAM analysis to get to an outcome. But more competition, generally as a rough rule of thumb, is a good news, because that means that there is enough for one more entrant to come. Now, from the point of view that, there are already major established players, I'm sure that from a major established player point of view, you will find a solution that still meets the need of the customer that the major giants are not able to meet. And that becomes your entry strategy into that market in terms of how you will gain on customers. The thing with most of the customers is that they dislike the 800-pound gorilla in the room. They dislike the largest players in the room. And that goes across the market. You could be in healthcare, you could be in fintech, you could be in retail. You would see everyone hates the largest player and they want to back a new incoming kind of an organization, play that to your advantage, it will work magic for you. So again, don't be scared of the competition. Work the fact that you are the smallest player and you have an innovative offering and you are agile enough that you can change as per the feedback of the customer, which these large, huge giants cannot do.
That was inspiring. So I am done with my questions, and I would request if someone has any question, they can raise their hand and then we can take that forward. We still have around 2-3 minutes left. So anyone with questions can raise their hand.
So hi, Sandy.
Hello.
So I would like you to speak in brief on the provision of quality healthcare in India and elsewhere. Just in brief, if you can speak on some of the innovations and strategies that can be employed.
Sure. So again, quality of healthcare is a very, very large domain, right? And again, quality is quality differs for everyone. Quality for a high-risk patient is something very else. Quality for, let's say, a low-risk patient and a medium-risk patient is extremely something very, very different, right? I think that a starting point, what you need is the right data at an individual level. Once you have ensured it at a population health level, and that means at a government level, at a local government level, or at a central government level, you can start employing and deploying those ideologies. You need to have enough medical infrastructure, then you can start deploying it in play. Again, the quality of healthcare also depends on the quality of the medical professionals who are there on the job, because as they say, right, you can take the horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So until this, you can provide them with the best insights which are needed, but until this, you have got the right professionals on the job who can then use your insights and give the right care, the quality would not be achieved. So KJ, again, the answer depends a little bit on who is again talking about it, a medium risk or a high risk or a low risk kind of a patient. So there's a question, and so there are two questions. Sorry, I'm just looking at the chat. Switab, if you want me to take on. The first is, sorry, go ahead, Switab.
Oh yeah, it's fine. You can take, but
sure.
Yeah.
No, if we are already up time, I'll be respectful of the time.
Yeah, so we'll have just one more question from Niharika and then we can wrap it up because we have to conclude by 8:50.
All right.
Niharika, you may go next.
Thank you, Shweta, for giving me the chance. Hi, Sandy. Good evening. Thank you so much for giving us the very realistic view about entrepreneurship. And my question is very basic, actually. It's more like, what do you like about entrepreneurship? Because when you say that you don't have much in control, even if, there is a glamour lifestyle and all these things. So what exactly do you like about entrepreneurship till your journey right now?
Sure. So the piece that I like about entrepreneurship is that you are typically the end point. You don't have anyone else to blame for. Kind of a thing, right? Because most of the times, anything that you have to blame for is yourself. And you will find that, if let's say the bills are not paid on time, if the customer has churned, if the funding is not raised. So you don't have to end up blaming someone else. So that's the one piece that I like a lot about it. That at the end point in time, if you are responsible for what you want to achieve and you don't have anyone else to blame for it, I think is one of the major motivating factors. Now, again, at this point in time, having the ability that we have 1,400 people again working for the company, so we are touching so many lives, because it's just not those 1,400 people, it is their families and it's the stakeholders, and so the impact that you can create in the society at large is so much larger that you then at the end of the day really end up loving it. So obviously you are trying to create a lasting kind of a legacy with a company if you can build up, which is a few $100 billion in revenue. And again, coming out of India, if you can build up the largest kind of product company coming out of India into a sector that was unexplored earlier, would be a feat in itself. So there are so many things that are there as double clicks into what you like, but hopefully Niharika, those are the top of the mind kind of pointers.
Thank you, Sandy.
So we are over the time now, and we have some other questions pouring in. So if you permit, we'll consolidate those questions and then we'll send you over a mail, and then maybe if you want, you can reply back.
Sure.
So now we are in the conclusion of the session. So I will deliver the vote of thanks. Thank you, Sandy. The entire session was very insightful, and I'm sure many of us would have got immensely benefited with the insights you share. It was indeed a pleasure hosting you. Thank you for your time in the early hour of Sunday.
Absolutely. It was great talking to you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Good day. Now I would request Sivakami to deliver vote of thanks on behalf of Ingenium. You're on mute, I guess, Sivakami. You're not audible.
Thank you. Thank you, Conclave team. Thank you, Shweta. Ingenium, a day-long conclave accelerating the startups to unicorn. Thanks to XLRI, the faculty of XLRI, and all the coordinators of this event. Special thanks to our placement head, conclave committee, and my fellow batchmates for making this conclave a successful event. Thanks to all the speakers who have been with us throughout this day. A special thanks to our dean, Dr. Ashish K. Pani, for providing the inaugural address, Dr. Madnesh Kumar Mishra, Mr. Ankit Agarwal, Mr. Srihari, for being eRemit Singapore sponsor, Mr. Sandro Stephen, Mr. Rahul Singh, Mr. Smita P. Mishra, Ms. Asta, Ms. Harnoor, Mr. Maheshwar Perry, Mr. Kush Mehra, Mr. Sanjeev, Mr. Sarad Dal, Mr. Vivek Sinha, Mr. Sandeep Gupta. So thank you all for making this a grand and a successful event, and thanks to all the speakers. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for participating.